My Marvel superhero girlfriend, greetings, fellow multiversal adventurers. It's an honor to have you back in this saga that has us all hooked. Official channel statement: this story is 100% epic fiction, so please don't attempt real magic. The results aren't guaranteed and insurance won't cover it. The rights to this masterpiece belong entirely to its brilliant original author. We are just a barge sharing it with you. Do you want to keep being part of this amazing community? Join our ninja army of subscribers on YouTube and give this content a like. And for true fans, our Patreon has exclusive ninjutsu waiting for you. Chapter 176, Villains I Nian, King of the World. It was dusk, the transition between afternoon and night. In a parallel world, New York City, Queens, Central Street. Atop a massive church building hundreds of meters high, atop the four-faced church clock, there was barely enough space for a human to stand. Pigeons occasionally fluttered by, their wings flapping. A towering figure in a tight red and blue spider suit leaned against the wall behind him, his feet and back seemingly glued to the wall behind him, leaning against the outer wall perched high above the church's tower. The spider emblem on his chest shone brightly in the setting sun, and the two black lenses in his hood reflected the vast city below. His name was Peter Parker, Spider-Man. He was also the world's only superhero. Ever since his adoptive father was shot and killed by a mugger he had allowed to escape, Spider-Man, guided by the life motto "with great power comes great responsibility," has been fighting crime and evil in the city as a superhero for 10 years. As Spider-Man's unique and extraordinary existence, he had weathered initial social skepticism and abuse, but now he was beloved and recognized by the public. His posters now covered fashion magazines and graced the streets. He was the world's most popular figure. It was no exaggeration to call him the king of the world. Today, it seems, is a peaceful day. Spider-Man smacked his lips, whistled softly, and surveyed the bustling city below. He stroked his chin and pondered, "I'd better get back home for dinner, or else MJ's going to scold me again." A married man in his 30s, his life was completely out of his control. Spider-Man shrugged, raising his hand to launch a web of silk back home. But then, from the city streets not far below, a burst of rapid, loud sirens blared. The police were dispatched. "Oh yeah, looks like I'm finally back to life." Staring down at the speeding police cars with their lights flashing, Spider-Man's lenses lit up slightly. The muscles beneath his tight spider suit bulged, and his once languid, muscular frame seemed to revitalize. Going home early would naturally mean going to bed early to pay his dues. That would be too much for his body. Rather than going home so early, Spider-Man would rather have a thrilling battle with his supervillains and return home later. As the saying goes, a hero never returns. The sun hadn't yet set. New York City was already ablaze with neon lights, the streets gleaming like daylight, like a city that never sleeps. Queens, a bustling pedestrian street. A large jewelry store occupies a prime location. Even at night, the shop was still quite busy, but most of them were wealthy people driving luxury cars and wearing expensive designer clothes. The female staff, each with fair skin and beautiful features, greeted customers with a smile, often resulting in a scene where the staff often outnumbered the customers several to one. At this moment, several female staff members instinctively raised their eyes and smiled at a figure entering the main entrance, but then paused. The man was dressed in a formal suit of white shirt and trousers, wearing a plastic Spider-Man mask. Although his face was unclear, his figure revealed him to be a young student. The masked boy clutched a common fruit knife. He glanced around the shop through his mask's pierced eyes, coughed softly, and shouted in a deep voice, "Robbery." With those words, the shop fell silent. The clerks and customers in the jewelry store were stunned for a moment, staring at the spider-masked boy standing at the door. The large, luxurious store fell silent for a few seconds before bursting into laughter. "Hey! Go home and drink your milk, kid. Ha ha ha, at least grab a gun. It's here. The funniest robbery of the year." The clerk burst out laughing, her face radiant, her mouth unable to close. "Sister, I have milk. Want some? Stop teasing me. Can't you see how embarrassed everyone else is? Even though she's young, she's got a great figure. Just my type. You idiot." Faced with a roar of laughter and commentary, the spider-masked boy took a deep breath, threw the fruit knife to the ground, lifted his right foot slightly, and stomped it hard. Strike! The floorboards of the jewelry store's lobby cracked, spreading like a spider web. Countless shards of tile within a meter flew upwards. The explosion of several tons of force shook the entire store slightly. On the scene, everyone's expression froze, their laughter fading. "Excuse me, is it okay to rob now?" the masked boy asked earnestly. Woo! A police car screeched to a halt outside the jewelry store. 3 officers, pistols drawn, got out, peered into the store, and shouted into their pagers, "I've arrived. The situation is up, not bad." Inside the jewelry store, the customers were allowed to leave, leaving only the female employees. The masked boy sat cross-legged on a chair, not forgetting to ask the employee to make him a cup of hot coffee with sugar and some milk. The jewelry is ready." "Mr. Robber, aren't you leaving?" the female shopkeeper asked, stammering, as she approached with a bag of jewelry. "Leave it there for now. No rush." The masked boy was about to take a sip of his coffee when he realized he was wearing a mask. Frowning, he waved and called, "Another straw, please." "Okay." The female employees immediately scrambled to find a straw. Outside the store, the officers, leaning against a police car, stood ready, their foreheads thick with dark lines. They'd seen robberies before, but never like this. "Captain, let's just charge in," one officer suggested. The captain hesitated when another officer called out, "Captain, the robbers are coming." "What?" As the 3 officers stared in disbelief, the masked boy, as if finally aware of their presence, glanced out the door. Nian put down his coffee cup and slowly walked out of the store, his hands empty. "Stop. If you don't stop, we're going to shoot." The officers, startled, raised their pistols, using the police car as cover, shouting at the advancing masked boy. The masked boy, seemingly oblivious to the warning, continued walking forward. The captain couldn't help but pull the trigger to fire, but the masked boy swiftly leaned sideways, as if anticipating the bullet's trajectory, or as if the bullet was darting in his direction. Not a single bullet landed on Nian. Thanks to his spider sense, Nian could predict the angle of the gun's muzzle and the timing of the trigger pull to dodge the gun. "How is that possible?" the policeman gasped in shock. Before they could even think, Nian had already reached the police car. The masked boy bent down, his palms resting on the bottom of the police car. With his arms flexing, he lifted the car high above his head. The 3 policemen, enveloped in the vast shadow cast by the police car, were stunned. For a moment, they thought they were doomed. Crash! The masked boy's raised hands loosened, and the police car fell back to its original position. The windows groaned, and the ground shook with them. "Now you understand. You can't handle me. Stay outside and don't bother me," the masked boy said, turning back into the jewelry store, where the straws were already prepared. The 3 policemen exchanged a blank look. "Crazy. This robber is too brazen." The captain gritted his teeth and shouted, "Request reinforcements and notify the snipers." He paused and shouted, "No. Quick, quick, get Spider-Man." A moment later, a large spider-shaped cursor, projected in light and shadow, etched itself into the New York sky just as night fell. 3 minutes later, as several police cars rushed to support them, a nimble male figure, like a spider, swooped down from the corner at the end of the pedestrian street, his lights illuminating him. Upon seeing the figure in the red and blue spider suit, the onlookers, including the police, erupted in cheers. "Spider-Man is here. I'm embarrassed by your enthusiasm. I'm not some celebrity, just your friendly neighbor." "Hey." Spider-Man responded casually, swinging his web towards the jewelry store surrounded by police cars. "Inside." Finally, muttered Nian, dressed as a masked teenager, as he handed his empty coffee cup, along with a straw, back to the shopkeeper. "Thank you for your milk. Ahem. Thank you for your coffee. Is the robber trying to escape, Mr. Robber?" The charming shopkeeper blinked her tear-stained eyes, a hint of reluctance. "Yes, bye." Nian didn't even pick up the jewelry bag lying on the ground. He instantly stood up from his chair and bolted for the back door of the jewelry store. And then, bang! Spider-Man burst through the door. He glanced at the female employees inside the jewelry store and winked. "Where's the robber?" He ran out the back door. A clerk pointed toward the open back door. "He's already here, and he's still trying to escape." Spider-Man didn't hesitate, and immediately gave chase. The Spider-Masked Boy and Spider-Man were incredibly fast. One sprinted, the other flew, one in front and the other behind, moving away from the bustling city and quickly arriving in a quieter part of the city. The Masked Boy suddenly turned into a deserted alley. Spider-Man effortlessly landed from mid-air at the alley's entrance. He smiled into the pitch-black darkness. "Robber, you've taken the wrong path. This alley is a dead end." The masked boy, having rushed deeper into the alley, suddenly stopped. A wall stood before him, a dead end with no escape. "You're the one who took the wrong path." Nian turned back, baffled, and asked Spider-Man, who had just entered the alley. "What?" Spider-Man took another step forward, puzzled. As he approached the 10-meter mark of the masked boy, he felt a surge of static electricity. His spider sense triggered on its own accord. "You are..." Spider-Man was stunned, staring intently at the masked boy in front of him. This person was a kindred spirit. Not just a supernatural kind, but a kindred spirit with the same spider-like physique. "Gwen, do it!" Nian suddenly called out. Spider-Man was startled. Behind him, he heard the whirring sound of spider webs. Turning back, he saw the alley entrance blocked by a dense web. Another strange static sensation washed over him. Not just one person, but two, both with spider-like physiques. Oh no! With years of experience battling supernatural beings, Spider-Man leaped up, landing on the alley's outer wall, 10 meters above. With swift, coordinated limbs, he scrambled towards the alley's unblocked ceiling. Just as he was about to escape the alley from the top of a nearby building, Spider-Man suddenly felt his right foot grow heavier. Looking down, he saw the spider-masked boy firmly grasping his ankle. With his left foot, Spider-Man reacted with incredible speed, striking the opponent's head, only to feel his foot strike a plate of steel, devoid of flesh. This was Nian's body of steel. A body of steel with a naturally coordinated bioforce field. When faced with non-aggressive touch or contact, his body remains pliable and warm, like a normal person. However, once it perceives an offensive blow, it becomes cold and hard, like steel. It would have been fine if Spider-Man hadn't kicked, but this time it felt like hitting a steel plate, causing excruciating pain in his left foot. At this moment, a web of spiders descended, sealing the roof of the alley, the only visible part of the alleyway. A short-haired girl, also wearing a spider mask and a dress, leaped into the alley. She fired a strand of silk that clung to Spider-Man's back. Working with the masked boy who grabbed Spider-Man's right ankle, they pulled him down to the alley floor. Spider-Man suddenly regretted wearing his regular spider suit. The alley was sealed off by the webs, leaving no escape. Falling, Spider-Man gritted his teeth, turned his head, and engaged the masked boy and girl in a fierce battle, sending him plummeting to the ground. Boom, boom, boom. From the sealed alley, horrifying cracks continued to echo. The walls and spider webs occasionally dented, leaving a human-shaped dent. 5 minutes later, everything returned to silence. Inside the alley, Nian, the main fighter, had his shirt ripped, revealing his immaculately built upper body. Sweat dripped from his neck, tracing the curves of his muscles. Beside him, Gwen, acting as a support, fared relatively well, though also panting, having expended considerable energy and spider webs. Ahead of them, Spider-Man, the world's only superhero, sat in even more dismal condition on the shattered ground. His arms and body were bound by spider webs, as if entangled in a vast white cocoon. You've got to say, he's worthy of being the world's only superhero. Nian, resembling a villain, sighed. Spider-Man's strength had somewhat exceeded his expectations. After all, their super spider abilities were identical, yet even with Gwen and him working together, he couldn't defeat him quickly. His combat skills and mastery of his abilities were far beyond their reach. At this moment, Spider-Man's heart was even more restless. These two mysterious beings before him were formidable. Not only did they possess super spider abilities, they had already mastered them, just like himself 10 years ago. The girl's use of spider silk was even more refined than his, and most importantly, the masked boy. His physique was bizarre. That unimaginable, steel strength physique was definitely not something a super spider gene could possess. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to develop a metal spider suit before. Who are you two? The defeated and bound Spider-Man, his fist still aching, stared at the two and asked again. Chapter 177 Parallel Universe, 12 Battle Suit. The alley was sealed off by a dense web of spider webs. If anyone outside knew what was happening inside, they would be speechless with shock. Spider-Man, the world's only superhero, was now bound by the webs. Who are you? The black lenses reflected the masked boy and girl. Spider-Man, sitting on the ground, only now remembered that the spider-masked boy hadn't even taken the jewelry. It was obvious that this was a plan to lure him out from the beginning. He had underestimated them. Who could have predicted that two mysterious beings with the same super spider powers would suddenly appear, one of them possessing a body of steel that was practically immune to attack? The body of steel was too weak. In close combat, it would only suffer the consequences. If you want to know who we are, then answer our questions first. Nian reached over and ripped off his tattered shirt, which hung like a strip of cloth, revealing a perfect upper body made of steel. He looked down at Spider-Man and said, "Okay, okay. Ask ahead, if I can answer." Spider-Man simply nodded. He vaguely sensed that the two men harbored no ill intentions. Otherwise, like some other supervillains, they'd be eager to kill him. Nian stepped forward and ripped off Spider-Man's hood, revealing the face of a handsome, resolute Caucasian man in his 30s with a hint of stubble. The man's face was filled with helplessness and pallor, and he blinked innocently after losing the hood. "First question, what did you do today? Especially this morning. You must answer truthfully." Nian pondered. "Oh, can I not answer this question?" "No." "Well, I stayed home this morning," Spider-Man sighed, helplessly saying, "Specifically, I was doing what I love with my wife, so I didn't leave the house." "In broad daylight, pervert." The masked girl spat, looking away. "Well, I think this is quite normal," Nian coughed and continued. "Just the normal kind? Nothing special happened along the way?" "No, at most I added a new pose." Spider-Man's frustration grew. Gwen, no longer able to listen to their conversation, quietly retreated to the back. "What about lunch?" Nian asked. Spider-Man shrugged and casually replied, "I wandered around the city at noon. I caught a car thief, but nothing unusual happened." Nian frowned slightly and exchanged a glance with Gwen behind him. Perhaps due to their shared spider sense, or perhaps because they were of the same kind, they could sense the sincerity and resignation in each other's answers. Spider-Man wasn't lying. He hadn't done anything else today besides some family entertainment. Nian fell into deep thought. In other words, the entity that forced them to travel to this parallel world this morning wasn't Spider-Man? No, that wasn't right. Nian's mind shifted. It seemed as if the previous dimensional wall had been unilaterally targeting Gwen, and the Spider-Man of this parallel universe was the only superhero here. Everything pointed to Spider-Man's involvement. The Ancient One once said that dimensions themselves are chaotic and disordered, Nian muttered to himself, a flash of inspiration coming to mind. The timing doesn't necessarily match. The extraordinary event that caused our dimensional travel may not have occurred in this world yet. We've arrived at a time before that event. Nian pondered for a moment, then nodded to Gwen. They both simultaneously removed their spider masks. Seeing the young man and woman reveal their youthful faces, Spider-Man was a little startled. "What are you doing? Revealing their faces so quickly? I'm afraid they're going to kill them." "Mr. Spider-Man, let me introduce ourselves. My name is Nian Prince, and this is Gwen Stacy." Nian smiled a bright and friendly smile. "Just now, it was just a misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" Spider-Man's mouth twitched. He was already tied up. However, Nian's next words completely stunned him. "We too, from another parallel universe, similar to yours, yet completely different." The alley was clear of all the cobwebs. Nian and Gwen untied the threads, freeing Spider-Man from his restraints. The three of them moved their conversation to the rooftop. Having confirmed that Spider-Man wasn't behind the dimensional incident, Nian simply revealed his and Gwen's identities and origins. "I see." Spider-Man was momentarily stunned, then looked at Nian and Gwen in amazement. "From another parallel universe? That's incredible." "I find it a little incredible, too, but this is what's happening right now." Nian shrugged. "I believe what you say is true." Spider-Man nodded. Their shared spider sense made communication much simpler and more direct. Of course, they still communicated verbally, but with the added bonus of spider sense, they could intuitively sense the emotions embedded in each other's words. It was like using another creature's unique gift to exchange information among their own kind. Spider-Man spread his hands towards the two men. "All right. I understand what you did earlier. If it were me, suddenly transported to a strange parallel world where I'm the prime suspect, I'd also seize control. Thank you for your understanding. You're truly the only superhero in this world." Nian praised. "I always feel like you're mocking me." Spider-Man chuckled bitterly. After all, he'd just been knocked to the ground. No, that's not the case. We're just acquaintances. Nian patted him on the shoulder with a familiar touch. He looked Spider-Man in the eye and said seriously, we do need your help to return to our original world. Of course. The instability of the dimensional barrier will also bring many potential crises to this world. Spider-Man nodded and asked, what do you need me to do? Simple, just carry on as usual, Nian replied. Just carry on as usual. Spider-Man was stunned for a moment, then quickly understood Nian's meaning. It was likely that the extraordinary event hadn't yet occurred. Even if the entire city of New York was searched, it would be difficult to find a solution to the extraordinary event. Since the extraordinary event that caused the dimensional shift occurred in the future and was related to him, all he had to do was wait for that future to arrive, as usual. One more question. Gwen suddenly raised her hand. What's it? Nian and Spider-Man both looked at the girl. I'm hungry, Gwen said, her brows furrowed slightly, clutching her flat stomach. Nian. Spider-Man. New York, Queens. A 3-story single-family house. The window suddenly opened from the outside inward, and 3 dark figures of varying sizes disappeared into the second floor. Inside, the lights flickered on. Spider-Man skillfully rummaged through his closet, finally pulling out an ordinary school uniform. This is what I used to wear to school. I haven't worn it since graduation. You can use this for now. Okay. Nian took it without hesitation, pulling the uniform top over his naked, muscular body. Spider-Man picked up another set of men's housecoats and tried to change outside. As the door opened, a beautiful young woman with long, brown hair in a bun was standing outside. She looked to be in her early 30s, her long, sexy brown hair neatly tied in a bun. Her face was pretty, and despite the thick windbreaker, her mature and graceful figure still hinted at her. Parker, you're back. The young woman's greeting abruptly stopped. Her beautiful eyes widened, and she gazed curiously at the young man and woman in the room, a look of surprise in her eyes. Since breaking up with his best friend, this was the first time Parker had brought a friend home. Hello, Mom. Hello, Sister. Gwen and Nian greeted each other, their respective titles clearly distinguishing their status. The young woman paused for a moment, her eyes fixed on Nian, and she couldn't help but laugh. Why call me sister? I'm already in my 30s. Really? I can't tell. Nian spoke like a sincere and good child. Gwen took a step forward without leaving a trace, standing in front of Nian and waiting for him to put on his shirt. Spider-Man smiled proudly and said, This is my wife, MJ, Mary Jane. Hello. Mary Jane smiled faintly and greeted them. Haven't you had dinner yet? It's ready. Let's come down and eat. Okay, Gwen replied politely. After Mary Jane came downstairs, swaying her hips seductively, Nian and Gwen stared at Spider-Man with strange expressions. Why? You didn't think I was married, did you? Spider-Man scratched his head. Did he look so unbearable? No. Just now, she called you Parker. Gwen asked. Yes, Spider-Man purred. You don't know my name yet, do you? My real name is Parker, Peter Parker. Peter Parker? Nian and Gwen looked at the tall, muscular Spider-Man in his 30s. In their minds, a skinny boy of about 12 appeared. Well, the two figures didn't quite match. Dinner time. Nian and Gwen sat on 2 makeshift chairs and had dinner with this world's Peter Parker and his family. Looking at Aunt May, her face wrinkled and visibly aged, yet more capable, Nian and Gwen couldn't reconcile with the sexy and alluring Aunt May in their own world. However, Aunt May in this world was just as kind, warmly entertaining Nian and the others. Peter Parker looked at the dark-haired boy sitting next to Gwen, quickly becoming acquainted with MJ and Aunt May, and suddenly felt a pang of discontent. It was as if the aura of the protagonist, all was attached to him, had suddenly changed hands. Damn, this is the protagonist mode. Peter Parker couldn't help but complain. After dinner, Gwen went out to buy clothes and daily necessities, and Peter Parker naturally paid for it. Seeing Nian still being cared for by MJ in his living room, Peter Parker finally couldn't help but step forward, took the boy's arm, and walked towards the door. I'll take you somewhere. Outside the house. Peter Parker led Nian to a small storage room in the corner of the courtyard. He took out his key and unlocked the door. A metal door suddenly opened, and a high-tech white light emanated from within. It was like a hidden underground elevator. Parker and Nian descended, passing various cars and high-tech equipment on display shelves, like a large science and technology exhibition hall. Nian was increasingly surprised. The bottom floor was a spacious, flat metal main hall. A glass cabinet on one side displayed spider suits, each in a unique style. At a glance, there were 12 different styles. Seeing Nian's surprised expression, Peter Parker felt a surge of satisfaction. He excitedly raised his hand and explained, "These are the combat suits I've developed over the past 10 years to combat various supervillains. There's the negative space nether suit, a uniform for warriors from the negative dimension. There's the highly insulated, electric-proof suit for fighting Electro. There's the superior, refined Spider-Man suit. There's the high-tech, metal-forged iron spider armor. There's the lightweight stealth suit, which can weaken sonic strikes." Peter Parker, speaking excitedly, waved his hand nonchalantly. "Whichever suit you like, I'll give it to you." "Thank you." Nian agreed without hesitation. "Also, can you modify it? Gwen should probably want one, too. When the extraordinary events of the future occur, ordinary clothing won't be enough to sustain him in battle." "All right," Peter Parker choked, suddenly feeling trapped. "Oh, right, come this way." Peter Parker, as if remembering something, led Nian to the side of the main hall on the ground floor, where they soon arrived at a basement where intelligence was stored. On one wall of the basement, spiderwebs covered the walls with pictures of menacing or bizarre-looking figures. The one hanging in the center was of a tall, bald man in a black suit, as burly as a human tank. His face was intimidating without anger, his brows etched with a fierce, cruel expression. His name is Kingpin. He's the biggest gangster in New York, and even in the United States, in this world. Peter Parker's face was solemn. "I've dealt with him several times. He's a tough villain. Lately, he seems to be recruiting some illegal subordinates. I suspect he has some terrible plans. The fact that you two appeared actually confirms my suspicions." Peter Parker paused and said in a deep voice, "If there really is a dimensional chaos in the future of this world, it's very likely caused by him. With a suspected target, it's easy to deal with." Nian narrowed his eyes slightly and said, "Since you have a plan, when are you going to act?" "In a day." Peter Parker raised a finger. "I need to locate their hiding place. This will take some time." "Okay." Nian nodded and said simply, "In a day, we'll meet here again and set off together. Who cares if he's a gangster boss or a supervillain? Countless supervillains have died at Nian's hands. One or two in this parallel universe won't hurt either." Chapter 178 The Beauty of Black and White. Late at night. The moon in this parallel universe wasn't noticeably different from Nian's original world. If anything, it was probably just the lack of numerous massive, man-made craters on its surface. The moon hung high in the inky blue sky, casting a cool, silvery glow on the city below. Spider-Man arranged a nearby place for Nian and Gwen to stay, gave Nian a miniature communicator for constant communication, and hurried back to prepare for the extraordinary battle the following day. At the doorway of the five-star hotel room, a Caucasian girl with short, blonde hair and an intellectual, beautiful complexion lifted a foot, removed her boots, and reached down to pull her thin white socks from her slender, soft ankles. It was like gently peeling back the outermost petals, revealing her tender, lotus-white toes. Gwen came to the assigned residence carrying the bags she had bought. She looked at the open night view outside the floor-to-ceiling windows on the top floor, the large, stylish living room with luxurious interior, and the luxurious bathroom the size of a standard room. She couldn't help but nod her head in praise. That Uncle Spider, although his strength is not that great, he is still very caring. Don't say that, he is your cousin after all. Lying on the comfortable sofa, Nian took a sip of ice cola and spoke up for Peter Parker, the Spider-Man of this world. Besides, he not only has a perfect and proficient control of the spider's ability, but also has excellent cutting-edge technology. The key is a special combat suit developed for his own spider physique. Nian recalled the 12 suits he saw in the basement, and pondered, if he came out today wearing the iron spider suit, even if he couldn't beat us, at least he could easily escape the scene, and he wouldn't be as embarrassed as he was just now. Just like the genetic ability of the super spider, it is easy to merge and superimpose with other extraordinary abilities. The well-rounded and balanced super spider physique is also well-suited to a wide variety of combat suits. Choosing the right suit for battle often unleashes extraordinary strength several times, even dozens of times. I know. He's very powerful. It's not easy to protect the world alone. Gwen pouted, I just thought, if my cousin becomes like him in the future, won't I be able to bully him? You just need to grow faster than him and become stronger, right? Nian smiled casually. I've picked out a spider suit for you. It should suit you perfectly. Parker will also make it in a day. I bought you a set too, casual, everyday clothes. Change into them when you shower later. Gwen said as she nonchalantly placed a shopping bag on the sofa and walked into the room with 2 or 3 more shopping bags. Shortly after entering the room, Gwen quickly emerged, hesitantly saying, Nian, it seems this hotel suite only has 1 room. Really? Nian, as if he'd just noticed, looked surprised. He patted the sofa and casually said, It's okay, I can sleep here. Gwen looked at Nian without saying anything. She returned to the room, carrying a set of clothes, and entered the bathroom. The sound of running water echoed in the bathroom, the glass door reflecting the steam and the girl's small, faint figure. Nian breathed a sigh of relief and couldn't help but give this world's Peter Parker a thumbs up. This cousin, he really understands. 10 minutes later, the girl emerged from the bathroom, wiping her short hair with a fresh towel. Perhaps from the hot shower, her small, delicate face was tinged with a faint blush. Glancing at the sofa in the living room, she found Nian sprawled out with his eyes closed, seemingly asleep. The hall was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. 2 spider senses silently collided and then merged. The girl ignored the boy and headed straight for the room. As she stepped through the door, she suddenly whispered, Take a good shower before you come in. Oh, the boy on the sofa replied calmly, eyes still closed. Only when Gwen entered the room and closed the door did the dark-haired boy open his eyes. His heart was beating fast. He quickly stood up from the sofa, took a deep breath to calm himself, then picked up his new clothes and hurried into the steamy shower room. The night grew deeper. Even the New York of the parallel universe seemed to be drifting off to sleep. I'm coming in, Gwen. Nian, having finished showering and drying his hair, opened the door. He saw that the curtains were all drawn. Only a single lamp on the bedside table was on, emitting a faint, unobtrusive glow. The blonde girl lay on her side on the large, luxurious bed, her back to the door. The thin quilt draped over her body only accentuated her youthful, delicate curves. Are you asleep? Nian muttered to himself as he closed the door. He also lay down on the bed and pulled up the quilt, as if a 38th parallel separated him from the girl, lying flat on his back as if he were actually going to fall asleep. The room was even quieter and darker than the living room had been. Neither Nian nor Gwen spoke or moved, and the atmosphere inside was eerily frozen. After being good friends and brothers for so long, it seemed as if they couldn't adjust all of a sudden. Nian hesitated for a moment, but instinct forced him to turn over, his arms just enough to embrace the girl's lithe, petite body beside him. Gwen's body trembled slightly, sensitively, but she didn't resist. After feeling each other's warmth, Gwen suddenly sat up from the bed, her face slightly flushed, as she felt movement behind her hips. Nian, remember when we were little? Every time before nap time at school, I'd force you to play games with me. Of course I do, Nian said, looking at the girl wrapped in the blanket, reminiscing. Back then, you loved playing games, but you weren't very good at them. You always had to win before you'd let me win, so I'd always have to secretly let you win. That's not true. Gwen snorted, denying it, but her face grew even redder. She looked at Nian and asked softly, Now, do you want to play another game? Sure, any game? I'll play till the end. Nian patted his chest confidently. Gwen bit her lip, took a deep breath, and with both hands pulled the blanket off her body. Nian was stunned for a moment, then couldn't take his eyes off her. Gwen was wearing a brand new white shirt and black miniskirt. This outfit, somewhere between formal and casual, seemed designed for a young woman transitioning from youth to maturity, possessing a sophisticated yet sensual beauty. This was Gwen's most familiar attire, yet it was also her most suitable, a style that had accompanied Nian for 10 years. The white shirt was stretched to a full, firm shape, and continued to flow downward. Beneath the black skirt, the short-haired girl's beautiful legs were bent and crossed, each tightly wrapped in a pair of long stockings, one black and one white. Chapter 179 Nian's second permanent ability. Nian's mouth felt dry as he gazed at the girl before him. Spider-Woman, Gwen. Her left leg, clad in black stockings, outlined 2 flawless curves under the dim light. A faint glimpse of her alluring whiteness beneath the semi-transparent stockings shone a mysterious, luminous sheen against the black of the stockings. Her right leg, clad in white stockings, held a different kind of beauty. The stockings enveloped her slender, even-toned foot like a veil, appearing sacred and pure, untainted. The light shone upon her, illuminating the white stockings and leg with a luminous clarity. Regardless of the black or white stockings, the soles of her feet were both incredibly small and delicate. "Gwen, you're so beautiful," Nian complimented her unreservedly this time, following his own instincts. The black was mysterious and stunning, the white divine and pure. This perfect blend of black and white was a perfect match for Gwen, like the perfect balance of her spider genetic abilities. Gwen's face flushed deeply, and she tapped the air lightly with her foot. Looking at the girl, mustering courage and yet tinged with shame, Nian was gone. Who could resist this? It's just a game. Nian stretched out both palms simultaneously. The girl's feet were so delicate that his slightly larger hands could easily enclose them. It felt like holding the most delicate and precious things, far more precious than even divine instruments or a king's scepter. With her super spider gene, her feet act as sensors, with unprecedented sensitivity. Therefore, Gwen usually wears soft-soled shoes. Regular soft soles aren't enough. She needs lightweight boots designed for professional dance practice, capable of detecting even the slightest movement of a spider's web. Therefore, now completely grasped by Nian's palms, she could clearly feel the probing touch of his 10 fingers, amplified infinitely in her brain. Gwen's body trembled violently, and her legs, already clenched, became increasingly weak. Her soft, pink feet and toes instinctively curled up, then quickly and gently unfolded. Despite the stockings, they added friction, maintaining a silky, soft feel. Horizontal ellipsis. Nian had never played such a fun game before. Even if he wasn't a weirdo, he probably was by now. No one could resist Spider-Woman's perfectly refined legs. Even a year, 10 years, wouldn't seem to tire of them. The ivory curves against the pliant muscles were incredibly smooth. Horizontal ellipsis. It's time to end the game. Gwen's pale blue eyes were already misty, and she bit her lip tightly, suppressing the sound in her throat. "Then let's try a different game." "Ah!" Gwen exclaimed. But the young man's feet suddenly rose high, touching her shoulders. "This isn't a game." Gwen stared at Nian's face so close, her face flushing red as she finally gave up. Steam rose from her short blonde hair. "Is this okay?" Nian asked seriously. The girl, her short golden hair swaying, tilted her delicate face aside. With a slight tremor, she said, "Do you remember that joke you told me before? If I suddenly became a woman, what would I do? Let my brother..." Nian naturally knew what was coming next. His eyes flushed slightly, and he continued with a burning breath, "Gwen, you have to understand, I'm cheating on you. This is the game called life, there are no second chances." Nian had long regarded Gwen as a family member, so he seemed hesitant and cautious. If it were someone else, cheating would be fine. "Please." Gwen suddenly cupped his face, saying each word seriously, "This is what you owe me. I want compensation." Nian no longer hesitated. His right hand released a white, limp foot and gently peeled back a band-aid underneath. A night passed. The next morning, inside the penthouse suite of a 5-star hotel, the doors and windows were closed. The golden sunlight from outside filtered through the curtains, filtering in a bit of daylight. Inside, strands of white spider silk clung to the door, walls, and ceiling of the room. In the center of the suite, above the bed, a massive web dangled. The silken web were so dense that it resembled more of a giant nest than a web. Through gaps in the silk at the sides of the white nest, one could faintly glimpse a pair of smooth, slender, perfectly proportioned legs resting within the spacious nest. A large hand suddenly grasped the slender, white ankle, its thumb and index finger effortlessly locking onto it. Nian awoke. Soon after, the white nest began to sway slightly, its amplitude growing more pronounced, causing the dense web around it to tremble and tighten. The aftershocks and impact, far exceeding human strength, were mitigated by the spider silk. Otherwise, the mattress beneath would have been ruined, even if it had been of the highest quality. Gwen whimpered and awoke. The battle between the Spider-Man-kin continued. Afternoon. The black-haired youth had just broken free from the white web. The daylight beams that filtered into the room fell upon his once gloriously sacrificed shirt. The garment clung to his torso like a rag, as if ripped by fine nails, yet his iron form remained intact. The genetic power of the super spider had rekindled. The increased metabolism and the restoration of his extraordinary physique quickly recharged Nian's energy. He stepped forward and parted the curtain slightly, letting the sunlight flood into the brightly lit room. His steel-forged upper body bathed in golden sunlight, Nian gazed down at the modern city in the daylight. He was momentarily lost in thought. He could sense every speck of dust in the room, floating in the light. He could even see the subtle sway of a strand of spider silk forming the white web 10 meters behind him, out of his blind spot, and the gentle breathing and heartbeat of the girl lazing in bed within. This was spider sense. Now possessing super spider powers, it was only natural for him to have spider sense. Something was wrong. Nian realized, startled, from his trance. This isn't just any spider sense, it's an extraordinary perception of surroundings, more acute and detailed than ever before. Previous spider senses, at best, served as a sensory enhancement aid and early warning of impending danger. Their performance was more like a passive, shivering sensation, and wasn't very stable. But the current spider sense seems to be reaching even closer to perfection, pushing the spider's acute senses to their limit. Nian can intuitively sense everything happening within 10 meters of him. Things as minute as dust, movements as slight as the breeze, can't escape his perception. Stable and perfect spider sense. This is the second permanent ability of the Lord of the Families, Nian, after the Iron Body, which has no apparent weaknesses. Dividing line, P.S., mid-month, please vote for next month. Also, I beg you to subscribe to the original version on Nian. Those with sufficient funds can choose to subscribe automatically. This is the greatest support for the author. Chapter 180 Spider-Woman's ability changes. The second permanent ability, Spider Sense. With a thought, Nian's highly sensitive and exceptional spider sense radiated outward, weaving the surrounding space like a web of invisible spider silk. He could discern everything within 10 meters, even from 1,000 meters away. For example, if someone were to attempt a sniper attack with a high-precision sniper rifle, the moment the gun locked eyes with Nian, his spider sense would give him a psychological warning. Even though modern sniper rifles were no threat to Nian. Iron Body, Spider Sense. One boosted physical defense to the highest level, the other provided perception and warning. Nian felt his survivability had reached a new level. If he didn't act recklessly, surviving would be difficult. Of course, the spider sense's close-range perception was too subtle, which wasn't a good thing. It would flood his brain with unnecessary information. Nian could clearly sense it. Meanwhile, from within the white web nest behind him, a beautiful girl's brow furrowed slightly. She gently turned her petite body, her short golden hair falling across her delicate features. That disproportionately rounded, enormous body, pressed sideways against the web, formed a web-like outline. Golden light shone upon it, creating a shimmering, snow-white sheen. It was noon. Since Spider-Man hadn't contacted him yet, Nian grabbed another lunch. After finishing, there was still a piece of double-layered bread left, with white cheese oozing out, a sweet aroma. Nian, I feel strange. The short-haired beauty, as if anticipating last night's events, had bought 2 identical outfits. After emerging from the web nest, she began changing into a white shirt and black skirt. Beyond her usual intellectual maturity, pride, and youthfulness, she possessed an indescribable beauty. Her already fair skin was radiant, and she seemed even more energetic than yesterday. Meanwhile, Gwen, now in her new clothes, clutched her stomach, an expression of wonder on her face. Something seems off about my body. Gwen's spider sense was primarily used to enhance her control and awareness of her own body. This was also a major reason for her incredibly quick reflexes, allowing her to move with the grace of a dancer, even more agile and swift than other spider-powered users. So, fully awake, Gwen quickly noticed something was wrong with her body. Something's wrong. Nian instinctively glanced at her abdomen, his gaze drifting down her legs. Not that. Gwen really didn't want to be the quick-witted girl. She glared at Nian, then raised her fair wrist and said, "It seems my silk has undergone a strange change. Try it." Nian gestured, extending his left arm. Gwen took a deep breath, preparing herself, and with a slight twist of her wrist, a strand of white silk immediately wrapped around the boy's left arm. "It's just like before, isn't it?" Nian curiously examined the silk wrapped around his hand, his other hand gripping the white thread. A look of doubt quickly crossed his face. Finally, his eyes grew serious. Nian, still possessing the power of his spider gene, exerted force with both hands, yanking the white spider silk gripped in his palms. The silk was barely stretched to its maximum tautness, amplified by the trembling sound, yet even tons of physical force proved difficult to rip apart. Remember, even the silk Gwen and Nian had previously released, even if it was so flexible that ordinary people could barely break it, could still break even a single strand or two with the sheer force of a tonnage. Gwen's current silk was like steel. Unlike the steel used by Magneto's Spider King mode, this one wasn't made of metal, yet it possessed the indestructible toughness of steel. How did you do it? Nian asked curiously. If Gwen's silk had previously reached this level of toughness, the abomination might not have been able to break free from the dense web. The silk seemed to have been upgraded, reaching even closer to perfection. I don't know either. Gwen shook her head blankly, her little hand instinctively rubbing her belly as she muttered, I'll be able to do it when I wake up. Not only that, I can also manipulate the spider silk to be thinner and sharper, strong enough to cut through objects. Gwen tugged at the white spider silk in her tiny hand, and it actually grew thinner and sharper, making a soft humming sound along Nian's steel arm. Naturally, it couldn't harm a Kryptonian steel body, but it might be enough for any other creature's body. Could it be? A flash of understanding flashed in Nian's eyes. As he gained permanent supernatural powers, Gwen's own abilities would also be optimized towards perfection. Nian had had an illusion last time. He sensed some changes in Supergirl's body. Looking back now, it must have been true, but Kara just didn't notice it at the time. Lord of the Familiar, how does the application of this power resemble a double? Nian paused, ultimately holding back his words. However, one thing was certain. Not only did Nian become permanently stronger, but anyone accompanying him also saw their abilities perfectly optimized. 5-star hotel, luxurious suite. Nian and Gwen stood side by side on the open-air balcony, their hands on the railing, the bustling modern city unfolding before them. Gwen suddenly tilted her head, her short hair gleaming with golden light, and gently rested on Nian's shoulder. Actually, when I first arrived in this parallel universe yesterday, a terrifying thought suddenly occurred to me. What if I could stay in this world with you forever? Gwen whispered, closing her eyes. So that's how it is. Nian smiled, tilting his head to look down at Gwen's face. No wonder you haven't acted anxious, but rather relaxed. I thought traveling to this world must have scared you. But if you don't go back, your family will be worried and concerned. Officer George might turn Washington upside down. Who's to blame? Gwen pouted her soft, pink lips. Nian couldn't help but lower his head and taste the jelly dessert. He gazed at the girl's delicate, fair collarbone, where a gleaming silver pendant, designed like a dancing swan, hung. He smiled and said, Congratulations again, Gwen. Happy birthday. Gwen parted her lips slightly, exhaling hot air and humming softly through her nose. Then, her eyes, gleaming like gemstones, opened. Now, I know what to do. Nian was about to say something when the communicator in the living room behind him rang. It had been given to him by Spider-Man, Peter Parker, and he was the only one in this world who could contact the two of them. Nian and Gwen exchanged a glance, their hands pressed against each other's, their fingers intertwined like a tangled web of spider silk. Nian. Let's go. We have to go back. Gwen said with a smile. Okay, let's go back to our old world together. Nian nodded in agreement. Chapter 181 Spiders gather and the battle begins. A parallel universe. Spider-Man's secret basement. You're here. Peter Parker, already donning his advanced spider suit, looked up at the young man and woman descending from the suspended elevator into the main hall below. Are you all ready? Nian got straight to the point. Follow me. Spider-Man led the two to the intelligence room, where a large, detailed map of Brooklyn, New York, was taped to one wall. After half a day's investigation, I discovered that Kingpin has built a secret base here, in a long-abandoned subway station. Spider-Man launched a small web and attached a coin to the map as a marker. And I've confirmed it. Spider-Man's resolute face, still without his cowl, was solemn. Kingpin has been preparing a plan to build a massive energy counterbalance device. It would draw on the energy of all of Brooklyn, creating two massive counterbalanced energy flows. This would quickly connect the other parallel universes, effectively resurrecting his long-dead wife. His plan should be implemented within the next day or two. So, our journey to this parallel universe was concocted by someone in the future. Gwen exclaimed in surprise. Nian's eyes flickered with thought. He knew that powerful enough energy could penetrate space and even affect dimensions. It wasn't just the Ancient One who had explained this. Nian, in his Trinity mode, Apocalypse Wisdom, Kryptonium Body, Demigod Power, and Spider Gene Fusion, had also felt the sensation of punching through space and dimensions. That's for sure. Spider-Man nodded, holding out an object resembling a USB flash drive and gesturing. It's programmed with a self-destruct virus. If we can get into Kingpin's secret base and plug this USB into the central computer, we can completely destroy their data and equipment. Then what are we waiting for? Why don't we just break in together? Whoever tries to stop us will die. Nian's eyes flashed coldly. I agree. Gwen smiled faintly, as if unaware of the horrific nature of her approval. Looking at the young man and woman, far more violent and terrifying than himself, Spider-Man silently mourned for his old rival, the Kingpin. He then pulled a few photos from a drawer and warned, the enemy isn't just the Kingpin. He's recruited a number of supervillains. Here are their profiles, you can learn a little bit about them. Huh? This is. Nian picked up a photo. The mechanical octopus claws on it looked incredibly familiar, surprising Gwen. Spider-Man glanced at it and explained, that's Ms. Octopus. Her real name is Caroline Trainer. She possesses 4 intelligent mechanical claws and is a very formidable and ruthless character. So, in this world, Dr. Octopus is a woman? Nian and Gwen were amazed and continued to listen to Spider-Man's explanation of several supervillains. As the only superhero in this world, he knew them all. Of course, the same was true in reverse, the supervillains must also know him well. After introducing the potential villains, Spider-Man pulled out 2 modified spider suits and handed them to Nian and Gwen, respectively. Then, the black-haired boy murmured, I've suddenly come up with a great plan. Spider-Man looked at him curiously. What plan? The key to this plan, it's you. Nian pondered. Spider-Man suddenly had a foreboding feeling. After nightfall. In a subway station somewhere in Brooklyn, New York. A subway train pulled up. A black boy, wearing canvas shoes and carrying a backpack, stepped down. He looked pale and haggard, but his dark complexion helped hide this. His name was Miles Morales. Originally just an ordinary high school student, Miles unexpectedly experienced a physical abnormality last night after being accidentally bitten by a colorful spider. He began to notice subtle sounds and movements around him that he hadn't heard before, and he could even walk on walls tilted at 90 degrees. His hands were stuck to his clothes like glue, and he couldn't get them free. I have to find that spider. Miles gritted his teeth and, unnoticed, slipped into a tunnel in the underground subway station. The tunnel had long been abandoned. Following the tunnel until he reached a point of light, Miles quickly found the colorful spider lying dead on the ground. He was about to reach out to grab it, but the spider strangely twisted and vanished, as if it had fallen into another dimension. At the same moment, a loud noise erupted from the side of the abandoned station, mixed with a low, monster-like growl. Startled, Miles approached, and suddenly his vision opened up. The abandoned station had been completely shattered, transformed into a vast hollow area, lined with energy plates resembling electro tubes. 2 massive scientific instruments, each the size of a building, stood on either side of the hollow area. Their openings, over 10 meters in radius, faced each other, resembling a particle collider magnified hundreds of times. Within the hollow area, 2 figures, one large and one small, engaged in a fierce battle. The former, cloaked in green, resembled a miniature, moving mountain of flesh, with horns resembling those of a demon from hell. His features were hideous and beastly, his body even more powerful and massive than a beast's. Behind him were green wings and a tail, and his eyes flashed with a ferocious, cold red light. It was the supervillain, the Green Goblin. Fighting him was a figure clad in a web-like, red and blue skin-tight suit. Who else but Spider-Man? Kingpin, stop. You'll destroy all of New York. Spider-Man shouted urgently, engaging the Green Goblin and being swiftly blasted back. The Green Goblin, after all, possessed a massive physical advantage. Even Spider-Man, in his advanced suit, struggled to catch a single blow. You'd better worry about yourself, Spider-Man. How dare you barge in like this alone? Today is your death. A glass window opened into the central control room, where the well-dressed boss, the Kingpin, sat. Dodging the Green Goblin's fierce attacks, Spider-Man quickly crawled along the energy panels toward the central computer. Just then, another dark figure, wearing an iron mask and a black cape, swooped down, unleashing a burst of energy, sending Spider-Man plummeting. Another supervillain, the Prowler. His eyes flashed purple, his engines erupted, and he swooped down in pursuit of Spider-Man. Attacked simultaneously by the Green Goblin and the Prowler, Spider-Man was unable to escape and was at a significant disadvantage. Spider-Man, you don't stand a chance. Kingpin's eyes were icy as he commanded the staff in the control room, activate the energy collider and connect the parallel universes. Not good. Witnessing the extraordinary battle unfolding before his eyes, Miles, whose powers had just awakened, though unaware of what was happening, was filled with horror and a chilling sense of devastation. Opportunity often comes to those who are prepared. Spider-Man muttered inexplicably as he struggled against the Green Goblin and the Prowler, his body slamming against the wall. It's all over. In the main control room, Kingpin sneered. He raised his massive hand and slammed the final activation button. Snap! The void area fell silent. Well, nothing happened. The two massive energy colliders remained motionless. Kingpin was stunned. The energy collision device should have captured the energy of New York City and collided the high-intensity energy beams, thus connecting the parallel universes. Well done, Nian, you're my Superman. Spider-Man, battling the Green Goblin and the Prowler, no longer looked distraught and desperate, but suddenly chuckled. Kingpin looked up in surprise and saw a young man's dark figure appear in the center of the hollow ceiling, at the central computer. A USB drive was plugged into the central computer. Chapter 182 The Dead Spider-Man. The battle begins. The beginning, and the end. In Brooklyn, New York, beneath an abandoned subway station, in a vast, hollow area, at the central control center of the dome, a young man in a dark, skin-tight Spider-Man suit dangled upside down. His feet treaded the energy slab ceiling as if it were flat ground. The spider veins on his goggles and chest glowed with a cold green light. No one except Spider-Man's side knew when he had appeared, yet he had not only successfully infiltrated but also reached the most crucial location. It was none other than Nian. This time, he was wearing Spider-Man's modified stealth suit. The stealth suit, also known as the Big Time suit, was Spider-Man's suit designed to counter sonic attacks. It was constructed from a material that distorted sound in light waves, weakening them and providing a degree of camouflage. This was Nian's choice. For Nian, his steel-clad body was the world's strongest defense. There was no need to sacrifice flexibility for a metal suit that offered enhanced defense. The lightweight, practical, and camouflage stealth suit was the perfect fit. His stealth suit was a major factor in his unnoticed arrival. Damn it! Inside the main cockpit, Kingpin stared with unconcealed fury at Nian, hovering above the void, and Spider-Man, battling the Green Goblin and the Prowler below. It finally dawned on him. Spider-Man hadn't come in alone. He had simply made himself the visible target, drawing everyone's attention and hatred, and luring the Prowler, who was guarding the central control system, away, allowing his companions, working in the dark, to destroy the system. This was, in fact, the battle plan Nian had outlined earlier. If Nian and Gwen hadn't traveled through time, the original Spider-Man would have come alone to intervene, ultimately leading to a failed dimensional collapse. So, Nian simply let history repeat itself in this parallel universe. Spider-Man arrived alone to intervene, allowing Nian, who wasn't supposed to exist in this world, to seize the opportunity to destroy the instrument's mainframe. Octopus Lady, what are you doing? Kingpin trembled with rage. It wasn't just the Prowler guarding the central control system, the Octopus Lady, hidden in the shadows, was also. Meanwhile, in an underground tunnel on one side of the void, a blonde woman wearing sunglasses and a white-collared shirt stood there. 4 mechanical tentacles, resembling octopus tentacles, were attached to her back. Her beautiful face stared intently into the darkness ahead, her expression grave. Who are you? There stood another petite, graceful young woman. You can call me Spider-Woman, the girl winked playfully. She wore a tight, black and white spider suit. The suit seemed to be made of a special metal, coating her petite frame like a thin layer of metal. Spider patterns flowed along graceful curves like electronic light, and the sleek, new suit shimmered with a cold, metallic sheen. That's right, the spider suit Nian had chosen for Gwen was the Iron Spider. This was naturally for defensive purposes. While Spider-Man has more than just this one metal suit, including the more intelligently armored Spider Armor Mark I and Spider Armor Mark II, the protective strength is sufficient to withstand standard artillery and missile strikes, but their weight significantly slows the wearer's speed and agility. The Iron Spider suit excels in this regard. While possessing sufficient bulletproof strength, the metal used is extremely malleable and lightweight, making it as comfortable and light as a leather spider suit. Well, another reason Nian chose this suit for Gwen was because her white rabbits were too big. Spider-Man truly couldn't create a smart metal suit like the Iron Spider suit, one that automatically conforms to the wearer's body. Ms. Octopus sensed movement in the hollow area and was about to rush there, but was suddenly stopped by a strand of spider silk. Spider-Woman, holding the other end of the thread in her small hand, said, "I won't let you through." "Hey." Spider-Woman Gwen froze for a moment. She could see her body, including the iron spider armor she wore, shimmering with a dazzling, unreal color. This hue was similar to the dimensional barrier that had appeared on the floor of the room. A strange, subtle feeling emerged in her heart. "Nian, did you make it?" Spider-Woman muttered to herself. "Almost back to our original world." Nian. "Great, we did it. I knew you could do it." Spider-Man's joyous words stopped abruptly. He also noticed with surprise that Nian, hanging upside down from the ceiling above, inserted a USB drive into the computer. A faint burst of dazzling light appeared, and the boy's body was between reality and illusion. The fluctuations of space spread outward. Now that the USB drive that destroyed the energy countermeasure system had been inserted, it meant that the previously predetermined future had been altered. Without the extraordinary event that caused the dimensional disruption, Nian and Gwen's existence would be overturned. "It actually worked," Nian said, looking at his palm, which was shimmering with dazzling colors. "You go back. I can worry less and continue to exist as this world's only superhero." Spider-Man panted heavily, then smiled and waved his hand. Suddenly remembering something, he pulled another USB drive from the waistband of his suit and tossed it upward. Nian, hanging upside down from the ceiling, caught it with incredible reflexes, looking down at the black USB drive with a spider mark in his hand. Spider-Man said nonchalantly, "Well, consider it my farewell gift to you. I hope you can become amazing superheroes in your own world. Who wants to be a superhero?" Nian shrugged, slipping the USB drive into the inner pocket of his stealth suit. Spider-Man below was no longer able to engage in conversation. The hollow area trembled, a hurricane blew up, and the Green Goblin, as massive as a mountain, leaped toward him. Bang! At that moment, a figure shimmering in dazzling colors descended from above, landing heavily on the Green Goblin's head, slamming it into the floor below. Spider-Man, ready to engage, froze, watching the young man flip and land effortlessly in front of him. "Go away," Nian said casually. "I'll hold them off for a while before I'm dragged back to my original world." Spider-Man gave a wry smile. "Did you know all that?" "I guessed it." Nian, with his back to him, stared at the Green Goblin and said firmly, "According to the original future, you'd most likely die here." In this future, Spider-Man was doomed. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 183, Nian is about to return, the final fight. Spider-Man remained silent, unrebutting. His energy was already drained. The future of this world had indeed been completely overturned, but the only thing that had changed was the future without dimensional disruption. The future in which Spider-Man died here remained unchanged, as the immense threat that threatened his demise remained. This was actually quite predictable. Currently, Spider-Man was already at a disadvantage against the Green Goblin and the Prowler, and the sheer number of supervillains gathered here was too numerous. If Kingpin and Ms. Octopus joined the fray, Spider-Man, without Nian and Gwen's assistance, would be doomed. This was also someone else's underground base, making escape impossible. Spider-Man was about to say something, but Nian declared in an unquestionable tone, "I'm the captain of this makeshift team. Listen to me. Get out of here. If you die, our plan will be a failure." Nian's body flickered with dazzling colors, his body half real, half illusory. He didn't know how much longer he could remain here. Perhaps 5 minutes, perhaps a minute, or even a second before he was dragged back to his original world by the altered future. I get it. Spider-Man cast a deep glance at Nian's back, then, without hesitation, unleashed a web of silk, swiftly swung toward the underground entrance. A sizzle. Seeing this, the Prowler immediately activated his energy engine, his dark cape rustling as he transformed into a dazzling stream of dark light, attempting to intercept the fleeing Spider-Man. But only halfway through his flight, the Prowler's body abruptly stopped mid-air in the hollow. He quickly turned around and saw a strand of white silk wrapped around his ankle. The taut white silk stretched downward, firmly grasped by the young man in the stealth suit. Nian pressed the Green Goblin's head firmly on the ground with one hand, while his other hand launched a web of silk to pull the Prowler down in mid-air. While there's still some time, stay and play with me, villains of this world, Nian smiled faintly. Kid, you're still so naive? The Prowler, seemingly completely enraged, turned and swooped down towards Nian. The Green Goblin also raised his rear end, lashing out with a powerful gust of wind from his massive tail. The two of them decided to deal with this reckless Spider Kid first. Spider-Man, don't even think about escaping from here. With a resounding crack, the glass window of the main control room shattered. Kingpin, dressed in a suit and tie, leaped towards Spider-Man, who was flying past, like a human tank, showering him with countless flying glass shards. Spider-Man deftly flipped mid-air, adjusting his swing with a second strand of spider silk, barely avoiding the impact of Kingpin's explosive attack. Kingpin, see you next time. Spider-Man didn't want to fight any longer. Knowing that Nian and Gwen were buying him time to escape, he swung on the web and quickly reached the exit of an underground tunnel. He already had one foot on the tunnel exit. But then, a raspy voice rang out from an empty space behind him. Spider-Man, look at that. Spider-Man turned to look. After the Green Goblin, the Prowler, Ms. Octopus, and the Kingpin, the fifth supervillain, who had been lurking in the shadows, finally emerged. It was a bald, muscular figure, with a lower body, starting at the waist, a ferocious, icy mechanical scorpion. The supervillain, the cyborg, the Scorpion King. The Scorpion King's mechanized left claw grabbed a black boy by the collar, lifting his struggling body off the ground. The tip of the mechanical scorpion tail, extending from its rear, hovered directly above the boy's head. I just found this kid and thought he was your teammate, but I didn't expect him to be so weak. The Scorpion King glanced fiercely at the black boy with his single eye, then looked at Spider-Man standing at the exit of the underground tunnel. Are you going to abandon this innocent, pitiful little guy and run off alone? Superhero. This feeling is. Staring at the black boy, Spider-Man was stunned for a moment, then gritted his teeth and turned, rushing towards the Scorpion King. Let him go. Okay. The Scorpion King actually threw the black boy to Spider-Man. However, just before Spider-Man reached out to catch the boy, the tip of the mechanical scorpion tail suddenly stabbed forward, easily piercing the black boy's body, clearly aiming for Spider-Man in front. He was going for a 2-in-1. Spider-Man, using his spider sense and super fast reflexes, dodged the blood-stained mechanical scorpion tail and hugged the black boy, whose abdomen was pierced. Spider-Man quickly glanced at the boy's injuries and found they were not fatal. He quickly realized that this was not a mistake made by the Scorpion King, but rather a deliberate attempt to severely injure the boy without killing him, leaving him as a burden. Spider-Man, you must die here today. Kingpin sneered. He and Scorpion King, licking the blood from his scorpion tail, flanked Spider-Man, who was holding the boy, one in front and one behind. Elsewhere, in the center of the hollow area, the Green Goblin roared and slammed his barbed tail into the area head again and again. Like an enlarged green whip or a massive sledgehammer, the slam sent the entire hollow area trembling violently. Furthermore, the Prowler, hovering low in the sky, raised his arms and unleashed a stream of purple energy beams, coordinating with the Green Goblin's attack on the same spot. The beams blanketed everything with a carpet bombing, sending waves of aftershocks emanating from them. That's enough, he's dead. The Green Goblin said hoarsely. He could feel that his tail struck a solid target every time, though it was a little hard. This kid is too arrogant. He thinks he can survive if he stays here. The Prowler paused his energy barrage and looked ahead at the deep pit with a radius of about 5 meters, filled with smoke and dust. But just as he finished speaking, 2 white spider silk threads suddenly shot out from the deep pit and landed on the green demon's throat. Smoke and dust ripped from the inside out, and a black figure darted through the air, circling the green demon's neck and landing there. How is this possible? The prowler stared in disbelief, staring at the young man, whose stealth suit's hood was only slightly torn, revealing only a portion of his handsome face. He had actually withstood the previous attack. Your attacks, how should I put it, were insignificant, Nian commented, rubbing his chin. Get off. The green demon's face turned green with rage, and he swung his tail diagonally at Nian on the back of his neck again. Nian narrowed his eyes and stood motionless, not even moving to evade. Green demon, stop. The prowler screamed, suddenly noticing that Nian had tied the 2 spider silk threads wrapped around the green demon's neck to his own waist, binding them together. The threads were much thinner and sharper than before, like steel wire. Unfortunately, his warning was still a little too late. The moment the green devil's massive tail slashed across his body, Nian fired 2 more strands of spider silk in the direction he was about to be swatted away, and suddenly pulled with both hands. The violent force of the green devil's massive tail, combined with the power of Nian's spider-like abilities, acted on Nian's steel body, sending him flying at high speed like a cannonball. The 2 spider silk strands instantly stretched to their maximum strength, and then, a puff. Blood splattered, and a massive head with 2 horns flew high into the air. Green Devil, die? Exclamation mark. Chapter 184, The Terminator Villain, Iron Spider. Sizzle. Warm, smelly blood spurted out like rain, catching the Wanderer, suspended in midair nearby, drenched from head to toe in a blanket of crimson. A massive head, crowned by a pair of ferocious horns, slammed to the ground with a resounding, muffled thud. The Wanderer froze in shock. The blood stained his metal mask, a blood-red blast in his eyes. He could see the mountain-like green monster, its head severed, the wound on its neck as smooth as a 10-meter-long blade. The green goblin possessed a mountainous body, wings capable of flight, immense destructive strength, hard, sharp scales and barbs, an incredibly strong physique, and exceptional healing abilities. Although the conceited Wanderer repeatedly refused to admit it, the Green Goblin was undoubtedly the strongest of their 5 supervillains. He had been a veteran villain for 10 years, constantly battling Spider-Man and remaining undead. The Green Goblin, such a powerful and transcendental being that even Spider-Man couldn't defeat, died just like that? He died at the hands of a mysterious young man who wasn't even a hero, and so quickly and simply, as if he hadn't even had the strength to struggle. The Wanderer watched in the distance as the young man untied 2 blood-stained strands of spider silk from his waist. Unharmed, his stealth suit only slashed at the waist. His body, stained with the blood of countless people, trembled inexplicably. He felt a tremendous fear from the mysterious black-haired boy, something Spider-Man couldn't even inflict. And this was Nian. Nian never considered himself a superhero or a supervillain. He was simply a man with his own principles and boundaries, acting according to his own personal preferences and perspectives. For him at this moment, Spider-Man was a very good new friend, Gwen's cousin from this parallel universe, and he had even helped him return to his original world. So, he undoubtedly sided with Spider-Man. Furthermore, those on the other side were all murderous and atrocious supervillains. Nian had no such psychological burden. Yes, once he struck, he would mercilessly kill his opponent. His enemies wouldn't even consider holding back. Don't even bother talking to him about killing or justice. Nian had always cared nothing about the justice of his actions, only whether the end result was what he wanted. Of course, if his opponent wasn't a supervillain, Nian would show some compassion, provided they were powerless to seek revenge. Otherwise, he'd kill them and be done with it. If he sympathized with a supervillain, who would sympathize with the innocent victims? Nian glanced at the exit of the underground tunnel, ignoring the stunned prowler. He raised his hand and shot a thread of silk towards him. At the tunnel exit, Spider-Man was holding a severely injured and unconscious boy in one hand, trapped in a desperate situation by the siege of Kingpin and Scorpion. Nian dragged the Spider-Man through the air, the vibrant colors of his body growing more intense. His form flickered in and out, like a strange being in a film, ready to vanish at any moment. The spider cowl on his head had completely shattered, revealing a mane of black hair and a delicate face. His brown eyes shone with a strange, iridescent hue, creating a sense of déjà vu in this world. 10 seconds. Nian felt a subtle feeling. This couldn't be wrong. 10 seconds left, and he would be leaving this parallel universe. With this thought in mind, Nian dived downwards without hesitation, his target unmistakably, Kingpin. "Boss, look out. He's heading your way." Prowler cried in alarm. "Huh?" Kingpin, about to deliver a crushing blow to Spider-Man, turned back. He saw the Green Goblin lying in a pool of blood in the distance, his pupils suddenly constricting in surprise. Then, noticing Nian swooping down, he instinctively swung his sandbag-sized fist with a powerful blow. "Don't confront him head-on." Wanderer roared hoarsely, unleashing a blast of energy from his dual-armed hands, intent on blasting Nian, who was in the air ahead. Wanderer now fully understood that the spider young man before him was unlike any other transcendental man he had encountered before. If you were to mistake him for a wielder of Spider-Man's abilities, it would be fatal. His impenetrable physique was like a superior force attacking a lesser one. Furthermore, his silk was completely different from Spider-Man's, possessing terrifying destructive power. Unfortunately, Wanderer was too late to inform Kingpin and the others. Wanderer's forward blast wasn't intended to harm Nian, but merely to delay him. Unexpectedly, facing the Wanderer's barrage from behind, Nian, in mid-air, suddenly adjusted his body, absorbing the energy blast on his back. His steely form remained unscathed. He used the blast as his own propulsion, charging towards Kingpin like a dazzling stream of light. At the critical moment, Jin Bing, as if sensing the presence of death, crossed his arms in front of him to protect himself. Nian landed. Jin Bing was immediately stunned. Because Nian had also temporarily changed his target. The Scorpion King's eyes widened in horror, watching the young man's foot approach infinitely. Everything happened so fast, leaving no room for reaction. Nian dropped from the sky, his immense momentum carrying him as he slammed his foot into the Scorpion King's chest. The Scorpion King was, after all, a cyborg. Only his lower body and left arm were mechanical, while his chest remained flesh and blood, indistinguishable from an ordinary human. And then, with a crack, the floor beneath the Scorpion King cracked, leaving a distinct dent. His chest dented further, leaving a footprint. His entire upper body was deformed, and he collapsed into the dent, spewing blood. Scorpion King, die? 2 supervillains were slain in quick succession. Kingpin, standing nearby, gasped as he watched the Spider-Boy standing nearby, stepping on Scorpion King's corpse. This man wasn't Spider-Man. Spider-Man would show them mercy, but this young boy treated them like nothing, swatting them like cockroaches or mosquitoes. Realizing this, Kingpin took a few steps back, only to be entangled by a strand of white spider silk. The thread, thin and sharp, immediately sliced through his pristine suit, leaving bloody marks on his sturdy flesh. "Are you going to die too?" The boy looked up at him, as if he were examining a corpse. Nian felt no pity or sympathy for Kingpin. From the intelligence Spider-Man had provided, he knew that while he was seemingly trying to resurrect his long-dead wife and children, he had actually killed them. Now, he was simply seeking to steal identical wives and children from other parallel universes. "You, don't come over here." Facing the Spider-Man Nian with a body of steel, Kingpin felt unprecedented horror and fear. Chapter 185 Return to the Original World, Hug Heroine. Nian clenched his palms, and as the white spider silk on his fingers tightened, it immediately sank deep into Kingpin's body, gushing out a torrent of blood. Even Kingpin, who had suffered countless serious injuries, cried out in agony as the silk pierced his bones. The supervillain Kingpin clearly smelled the scent of death. But at that moment, the blood-stained white spider silk suddenly and mysteriously vanished from Kingpin's body, as if evaporating. Nian seemed to have realized something, loosening his grip and abandoning his attack. Instead, he looked at Spider-Man nearby. "This is all I can do." Spider-Man, holding the boy, looked at Nian, his body stained with a dazzling array of colors, feeling that this was a mockery. His lips twitched as he said, "You've done enough. If I died here, it would be a shame." In less than 5 minutes, 2 supervillains were dead, and a villainous boss was seriously injured. Nian's true strength left Spider-Man in awe. Although he didn't know it, only his Iron Man and Spider sense truly belonged to Nian. "Then, see you again if we're lucky enough." Nian waved his hand, then his body completely melted into the void, vanishing from the spot. Spider-Man gazed at the spot where Nian had disappeared, muttering to himself, "See you again if we're lucky enough. I really look forward to seeing you next time. How much stronger will you be?" Elsewhere, in an underground tunnel. This area was covered in white spider silk, and on one of the threads hung a white cocoon. Ms. Octopus was inside the cocoon, her face ashen, her hands reaching out feebly. Not far in front of her, Spider-Woman Gwen, clad in her iron spider armor, extended 4 metallic claws from her back, pinning the mechanical tentacles detached from Ms. Octopus to the ground. "This way, you can't do evil, right?" Gwen muttered, and the metal claws she was manipulating suddenly pierced through the floor, as if merging into space. "Is it time?" Gwen blinked, retracting her 4 metal spider claws as her body vanished from its original position. Washington. The entire city went dark once more, then quickly lit up again. Inside a room, a young man in a black stealth spider suit and a young woman in metal spider armor appeared out of nowhere, lying on the floor, one above the other, in the same position they had initially crossed the dimensional barrier. "Xinian, we did it," Gwen said happily, hugging Xinian. "Yes, we're finally back." Xinian pushed himself up, but his spider sense quickly registered that there were more than just the two of them in the room. Xinian and Gwen looked up and were both stunned. Inside the dark room, a bald woman in a yellow robe stood in front of the door. Her face was expressionless, yet a smile played on her lips. The spatial fluctuations emanating from the dimension quickly subsided upon encountering her. Behind them, near the window, there stood a beautiful woman, clad in armor and a dress, carrying a Greek sword and shield. Her voluptuous black hair cascaded freely over her shoulders. The silver moonlight cast a thin veil over her. Her heroic features shone with divine might, surpassing the perfection and power of a god. At this moment, the divine woman lowered her gaze at the two, her frown slowly relaxing. "Oh, Auntie, Master Ancient One, good evening." Xinian hurriedly stood up and greeted them. Gwen also quickly disarmed herself. The metal shell of her iron spider armor faded from her limbs to her chest, condensing into a small metal object, revealing the short uniform skirt beneath. Gwen blushed slightly as she saluted the divine woman and the Ancient One. "You're lucky this time," the Ancient One whispered. "Dimensional travel is extremely dangerous. Once lost, you might never return to your original world. I've learned your lesson." Xinian, thinking back now, felt a lingering fear. If he hadn't successfully resolved the extraordinary events in that other world, he might have truly remained in that parallel universe for the rest of his life. Even if he possessed the technology or ability to transcend dimensions in the future, with so many dimensions and parallel universes, who would know which one was his? Seeing the divine woman beside him, her stunning face took on an unprecedented solemnity. Xinian blinked and said, "Auntie, I've missed you so much. Want a hug?" "How dare you say that?" Wonder Woman Diana raised an eyebrow. With a wave of her jade-like right hand, a golden rope emerged like a dragon, wrapping the boy's body in several loops. "Come back with me." Only after being led home by his aunt, like a nesting doll, did Xinian realize that the 2 days he and Gwen had spent in the parallel universe had only lasted 2 minutes here. From the moment Xinian vanished from this world, his aunt had arrived at Gwen's house in about 2 minutes, barely a beat slower than the Ancient One, who possessed spatial magic. This demonstrated how much Aunt Diana cared for him. So, even though Xinian was bound and carried back with a golden lasso, not by his aunt, he still felt an immense warmth in his heart. At Xinian's home. It was already late at night. The Crimson Girl, asleep in her room, hugging a large pillow, suddenly woke at the sound of movement outside. Wanda rubbed her sleepy eyes and hurried out of the room barefoot. The door opened. "Is the young master back?" Wanda asked in surprise, then dropped her mouth in shock. The window to the main hall balcony was wide open. Wonder Woman Diana, a combination of wildness and nobility, sat on the sofa. She, ever graceful, placed the young man, bound by the golden lasso, across her legs. With one hand, she pulled down the pants of his stealth suit and slapped the exposed buttocks. Hey, Miss Diana, why are you hitting the young master?" Wanda was at a loss for words, tears welling in her eyes. Xinian didn't actually feel any pain, despite his steely build, but his heart ached. This was the first time in 17 years that his aunt had hid him. Because of this, Xinian realized that even a moment or two without him being in this world was difficult for his aunt to accept. "Miss Diana, stop hitting the young master!" Wanda suddenly cried out, running forward barefoot, and hunched herself over the boy's body. Diana's hand finally stopped. Xinian could feel those beautiful, intelligent eyes staring back at him. "Now, do you realize where you went wrong?" Diana asked. "Yes." Zinnian nodded, saying, "From now on, I won't wander around anymore." At that moment, Zinnian suddenly understood. This current dimension, this world with his aunt, Wanda, and the others, was his eternal home. From the moment he arrived in this dimension 17 years ago and was picked up by his aunt, he had been inseparable from this place, not even for a moment. Chapter 186 Nian under the God. Meow. A small orange cat entered from the open balcony of the house. Its short tail entwined a glass jar containing a vibrant starfish. Its cyan pupils and a single sky blue eye simultaneously gazed upon the returning Nian. All right. I know you're home." Nian's face flushed. He strained to pull up his stealth suit pants. Despite being held like hamburgers by the two noble ladies and the cute girl, his current position and state were a far cry from the triumphant return of a king. Diana, in a calm voice, spoke first. "Wanda, I won't lecture him. Go get him a change of pajamas." "Okay, Miss Diana." Wanda's delicate, doll-like face flushed a faint blush, like her hair. She quickly disengaged herself from the prone Nian and took small steps into his room. Diana lowered her gaze to the young man sprawled across her lap, gently tapping his forehead with her crystal-white fingers. "You've really grown up. You're covered in sweat and the smell of blood, and..." As if sensing Wanda's imminent exit, she paused, whispering, "After you're done, come to my room." "Okay, Auntie." Zinnian nodded obediently. After scrubbing himself from head to toe in the bathroom, Zinnian changed out of his tattered, disposable stealth suit. Making sure his body was spotless, only the scent of shampoo and soap remained, he slipped into a pair of long-sleeved cotton pajamas. Since it was Sunday, and school was due tomorrow, Wanda had already gone to bed. Zinnian didn't even return to his own room. After exiting the bathroom, he went straight to his aunt's room inside. He opened the door. Under the soft, dim light of the modern room, a stunningly beautiful, dark-haired woman with a divine aura sat on the bed. She had shed her original Wonder Woman costume and donned a new, casual, white gauze dress. At first glance, it resembled an oversized men's white shirt. Her bust, a firm, beautiful figure, outlined a towering, alluring curve. Down below, two slender, delicate legs cascaded from the hem. Due to their length, they could only be folded sideways, their skin as white and translucent as a flawless work of ivory. Instead of reading a book or document as usual, Diana seemed to have sat in bed waiting for an eternity, her beautiful eyes fixed on the young man who entered. His face, a calm expression only divine, was composed, his handsome, bushy brows tinged with a hint of sharpness. He carried a commanding presence, not a veiled awe, but a noble and refined grace, like a divine crown enshrined in an ancient Greek temple, inviting a subconscious desire to kneel and submit. "Auntie, I was truly wrong." Nian entered obediently from the doorway, like a wolf with its tail between its legs, like a child begging for mercy after doing something wrong. If Spider-Man from the parallel universe were to witness this scene, he'd be stunned. Is this still the same cold-blooded teenager who slaughtered supervillains like dogs? Yes. No matter how tough, domineering, and invincible Nian may appear outside, when facing the woman in front of him at home, he would shed all armor and defenses to reveal his soft heart. It could be said that in front of Aunt Diana, Nian would always be the child who never grew up, and he was happy with it. If the target was Aunt Diana, Nian felt that even being under the god for life would be fine. As long as Aunt Diana was in power. Come here. Diana glanced at Nian and gently patted her legs. Nian blinked helplessly, but still climbed onto the bed. He was about to lie down on her legs when Diana suddenly reached out and embraced her. Late but not late? Nian was stunned. It had been a long time since he had been hugged by Aunt Diana like this. He smelled the faint and ethereal scent of violets, as if he was in the holy land of Mount Olympus. He was so tired and sleepy that he wanted to fall asleep. However, Nian knew that it was not time to sleep yet. He closed his eyes, then opened his bright eyes with energy, and said with a sigh, "And a lot of things happened this weekend." There was no intention or need to hide anything from his aunt. Nian took the initiative to explain some of the things he experienced and happened this weekend at the home of Superman Mr. Carl and at Gwen's coming-of-age ceremony. Diana did not interrupt Nian's words, but just hugged him gently and listened quietly, with a thoughtful and wise look in her beautiful eyes from time to time. After she finished speaking, Nian was expecting a rebuke or lecture from his aunt, but Diana paused, then said thoughtfully, "This is exactly as I envisioned. Through different media and exposure, your abilities will manifest differently. And, aren't you angry?" Nian wasn't happy about not getting a scolding from his aunt. "I'm angry because you suddenly traveled to another dimension. Even if I wanted to save you, I couldn't." Diana raised her warm index finger, lightly touching Nian's forehead, and said seriously, "As for Kara and Gwen are both very good girls, and their supernatural abilities are very impressive. If it were them, I'd be relieved. But you have to shoulder your responsibilities from now on, or I'll." Diana hesitated, unable to bring herself to say anything harsh. "Of course," Nian said firmly, suddenly reaching out to grasp Diana's fingers, as if holding a piece of soft, cool jade. Diana avoided his intense gaze and pulled back her fingers. Noticing the boy's firm grip, she let him hold on. Suddenly, she said, "There's one more thing you haven't noticed." "What is it?" Nian asked curiously, knowing his aunt's long-awaited review was coming. Every time she shared her extraordinary experiences with Diana, she would analyze and review them from her own perspective, drawing on her divine experience and addressing any deficiencies or omissions. "Why, you received the Man of Steel from Kara, and Spider Sense from Gwen, and not some other extraordinary power?" Diana's beautiful eyes gleamed. Nian was stunned. He hadn't considered that question, and had assumed these permanent powers were randomly acquired by their vassal masters. Diana continued, "If you can identify the factors that determine which permanent power is acquired, you can accurately obtain the extraordinary power you desire." Nian's eyes widened in shock. It had to be said that his aunt's idea was audacious. Chapter 187, about permanent abilities, Spider-Man's legacy. Nian left his aunt's room. Even after returning to his own room, his aunt's words still echoed in his ears. Why did he receive the Man of Steel from Kara and Spider Sense from Gwen, rather than other Kryptonian or spider genetic supernatural powers? If it wasn't random selection, then what determined which permanent ability he received? This was indeed a question worth exploring, a key to the future development of the Master's abilities, a top priority. However, this was only a theory. After all, the method for triggering the acquisition of permanent abilities was too demanding. After Kara and Gwen, it was impossible to just pick a random person of the opposite sex for experimentation. Nian considered himself no stud, and he wouldn't do anything without bounds. So, Nian could only put this question to himself for the time being. After he left, in the next room, Diana was also pondering the question she had just posed. If this is just an experiment, The dark-haired woman pressed one hand against her towering chest, the other cradling her beautiful face, as if sculpted by a god. Her beautiful eyes held no hesitation as she pondered for a long, earnest moment before finally shaking her head. The permanent abilities granted to the Master of the Familiar were irreversible and could not be triggered repeatedly in the same person. Without understanding the patterns and factors, experiments presented too many uncertainties. Diana herself possessed a supernatural ability, which she had intended to keep as a backup for Nian. Horizontal ellipsis. Oh, right. Tomorrow is Monday, and classes start again. Nian yawned sleepily, almost forgetting he was still a student. He was about to settle down in bed for the night when a flash of inspiration struck him. He fumbled in his pajama pockets and quickly pulled out a black USB flash drive bearing the iconic spider logo. However, after the intense battle, the metal had noticeably chipped a corner. It was a farewell gift from Spider-Man from a parallel universe, a gift he'd received after the successful operation. I hope it still works. Nian forced himself to sit on a chair in his room, powered on his seldom-used old computer, and inserted the USB flash drive with the spider logo into the main unit. The next moment, the computer screen lit up, switching to the USB flash drive's memory access interface. Nian's eyes flickered as a live video automatically opened, recording a young white man preparing to change into his advanced Spider-Man suit. Nian, I'm Spider-Man, Peter Parker. By the time you see this, I'll be dead. Nian. That careless Spider-Man had indeed foreseen his own demise in the foreseeable future. But Spider-Man, as always, led Nian and Gwen into the underground base housing 5 supervillains. To ensure the success of the plan to destroy the energy collision device, Spider-Man had clearly been prepared to sacrifice himself there. However, what Spider-Man hadn't anticipated was that Nian, along with Gwen, would defeat 3 or 4 supervillains in such a short time. Nian reflected. Finally, as he departed, Spider-Man was left alone in the empty space of the parallel universe, along with a seriously injured, unconscious black boy in his arms. On the villain side, the remaining ones were the severely injured Kingpin, Ms. Octopus without his mechanical claws, and the Prowler, who had lost some of his ammunition. Judging from the situation, Spider-Man, burdened by his encumbrances, was still at a disadvantage, but his fate was no longer certain. What would be his fate, death or a reversal of the future? Nian might never know. After all, it was happening in another dimension, too far away from his own. In the video, the parallel universe Spider-Man finally spread his hands and said, "So, for the time being, I'll pass on some of my wealth. After all, you're from another dimension, so it's not much of a sacrifice for me. Hopefully, even in another dimension, my things can help you." Now that you mention it, it seems like I've made a profit. Ha ha ha, I finally made a profit. Nian was speechless as he watched the unbridled and chatty Spider-Man speak. The video ended here, and then a memory screen came into view. This is. Nian's eyes widened in surprise as images of battle suits quickly popped up on the screen. 12 in total. Spider-Man had stored all the blueprints for his suits on this USB drive. Not only that, but there were also some bizarre, ultra-high-tech inventions, dozens of times more numerous than the spider suit blueprints, all designed and developed by Peter Parker over the decades since becoming Spider-Man. In fact, from the fact that he had independently developed the Iron Spider and Mark Spider armors, Nian knew that the Spider-Man in that parallel universe was undoubtedly a scientific genius on par with Iron Man. Wait, what's this technological invention? Suddenly, Nian discovered something, his eyes filled with surprise. The value of this item in the USB drive far exceeded the combined blueprints for the 12 spider suits. The next morning, Monday. Having slept in too late the previous night, Nian had just arrived at school when the bell rang. Standing at the door of his classroom, Nian saw his childhood sweetheart, Gwen, already seated inside, her hair a little curled up. He guessed that she had managed to catch up. Seeing Gwen blinking at him, Nian's mouth twitched. "Screw you. How dare we be late together? If I had known, I would have asked Wanda to open the door." "Nian, come to my office." A pleasant, gentle voice echoed from behind him. Even without turning around, Nian, with his spider sense, could clearly tell that the assistant instructor, Felicia, dressed in a shirt, jacket, and jeans, was walking down the hallway beside him, carrying a stack of documents. Nian gazed at the graceful figure, her long, flowing, shining silver hair swaying, and his mind couldn't help but recall the black cat thief he had seen with Guan Luo's help. Their images overlapped. "It's bound to happen, there's no way to avoid it," Nian muttered to himself. He acted like any other student, feigning a bit of trepidation as he followed Felicia. Meanwhile, in a classroom at a local junior high school in Washington, D.C., a crimson-haired girl sat adorably in the last row. Her top grades meant she could have chosen a front row seat, or perhaps even the best. However, Wanda had requested the last row. For her, the last row was quiet enough. Besides, she often has to ask for leave to do housework or study complicated courses such as housekeeping and magic. Wanda's excellent grades, coupled with the fact that the entire school is owned by the Wayne Group, the teachers and even the principal of the school treat her like a princess and naturally obey her in everything. At this time, Wanda was reading a textbook in the back seat, but saw the female teacher walk into the classroom with a green-haired figure. "Let me introduce to everyone, there is a transfer student in our class. Her name is Lorna, a nice name, right?" Chapter 188. My name is Polaris, against Teacher Cat. Washington. Junior High School, classroom. The side of the transfer student, standing quietly beside the teacher, brand new backpack and dressed in a tiny uniform skirt, lit up the eyes of the other junior high students, both boys and girls, as they burst into heartfelt praise. Who could resist a girl with delicate, lovely features, a petite and slender figure, skin as pale as ice, and the doll-like beauty of green hair? So beautiful, like an angel. Like a fairy tale heroine. Is that green hair natural? It looks similar to Wanda's, so cool. In the corner of the last row of the classroom, by the window, the crimson girl's eyes, like pale red gemstones, lifted up, reflecting the green-haired girl at the podium, who was about the same age as her. For some reason, She felt a strange sense of familiarity. This was clearly the first time they were meeting each other. Quiet. The female teacher calmed the class with a gentle hand, saying gently to the girl, "Lorna, from now on you will sit." The words were barely finished. The transfer student named Lorna had already stepped down from the podium. As the entire class stared in bewilderment, the hem of her black school skirt swayed gently. Her small hands grasped the straps of her backpack, and with a sharp tap of her black boots, she made her way to the back row of the classroom, stopping at the empty seat next to the crimson-haired girl. "I want to sit here," Lorna said softly, her tone unquestionable. "That seat is." The female teacher paused, her face then filled with resignation. In fact, many students, even from the class next door, had applied to sit there, but Wanda had silently vetoed them all. The female teacher naturally didn't want to risk offending the forces behind Wanda. However, just as the female teacher was about to persuade Lorna, the crimson-haired girl in the back row spoke up. "It's okay, let her sit here." "Thank you." Lorna coolly pulled out a chair and sat down next to Wanda. So cool. Many of the students were already fans of Lorna. Wanda, seemingly quiet and well-behaved, sat next to the active and cool Lorna. Both were stunning beauties, their beautiful features and features even slightly resembling each other, creating a striking scene in the corner of the classroom. All right then, the teacher could only smile helplessly, feeling that she had just added another difficult student to her arsenal. Class continued. "Hey, classmate, what's your name?" Lorna suddenly asked Wanda, who was standing next to her. Wanda glanced up at her and whispered, "Wanda Django Maximov." "My name is Lorna, I don't have a last name." The green-haired girl paused, a flicker of sadness in her eyes, then suddenly remembered someone and quickly corrected herself. "No, my name is Lorna Polaris." Lorna's strikingly beautiful pale green eyes sparkled, and she instinctively licked her soft lips, revealing a hint of her pink tongue before biting it with her fangs. Wanda was curious. What was she doing? A few blocks away, at the high school, Nian was, of course, unaware of what was happening at Wanda's. He followed Felicia, who was walking ahead, into the quiet, deserted office. "Sit down for a moment," Felicia said, slightly coldly. She put down the documents, asked Nian to take a seat in the chair at her desk, and then she lifted a cup and tilted her head back slightly to drink. Whether it was an accident or intentional, Nian could clearly see water sloping from the corners of her rosy lips, trickling down Felicia's slightly raised chin, along her delicate neck and collarbone, and finally into the slightly open collar of her shirt. Nian looked away without a trace, only to see Felicia approaching him. The silver-haired woman held the cup of water in both hands, placing it behind her. Her long legs, clad in tight jeans, squeezed tightly together, her mature, graceful upper body leaning forward and leaning in. Too close. Nian's pupils narrowed slightly as he met Felicia's gray-silver eyes closely. A few streaks of silver fell on his face. Their noses almost touched. "Miss Felicia, isn't this a bit inappropriate?" Nian blushed slightly, deliberately appearing flustered, behaving in a manner befitting a student. "It's okay," Felicia said in a voice as charming as a queen, methodically hinting, "I've hacked the office cameras, and no one will be coming in for the time being, so no one will notice this place." "This?" Nian was startled. Then, Felicia leaned forward again, nuzzling in like a cat. Nian felt her long silver hair tickle his neck. Felicia leaned in closer, almost as if she were lying on the chair, sniffed gently with her high nose, and then smiled a seductive smile. "Not bad, very clean." So, was this a special form of physical examination? Or was it treated like dried fish? Nian was speechless. After awakening her mysterious transcendental powers, something seemed off about this assistant instructor. For example, Felicia's deliberately suggestive behavior now, every word and every tone imbued with the allure of a queen. It's hard to imagine that just a month ago, as an intern assistant instructor, she was still somewhat shy, afraid to even step onto the podium. "I have a favor to ask of you." Felicia leaned close to Nian's ear and whispered in a pleasant, languid voice, "I hope you can help me keep a secret about what happened that night." Nian was about to say something. Felicia continued, "That night, you were dating your date, right? Miss Diana? You were wearing the same matching outfits." Nian's eyes cooled slightly, then quickly transformed into a bright smile. "Miss Felicia, what did you say?" Nian blinked and said, "I don't remember meeting the teacher that night." "Very good, That's right, Felicia smiled. Then, Nian muttered, I saw a news report on TV yesterday. Someone familiar seemed to have died in New York. The cause of death was a female burglar who broke into their home. I heard she had long silver-white hair. Felicia's smile faded instantly. Her silver-gray eyes fluttered like cat pupils, then quickly returned to normal, though Nian's spider sense still detected them. Excellent. Nian, you're truly amazing. Felicia's beautiful face, cool yet soft and moist, whispered softly into Nian's ear, what do you want? Anything. Nian asked bluntly. Anything. Breathing hot air into the boy's ear, Felicia's lazy, melodious voice tinged with seduction, and a heart-tickling laugh emanated from her. But in Nian's eyes, compared to Cheetah and Black Widow before her, Felicia appeared less skilled, a constant trace of deliberateness and unfamiliarity. The reason the other party did this was. A flash of understanding flashed in Nian's eyes. He smiled and stretched out his right hand, you said it. The next moment, Felicia's smile froze completely on her face. A large, slightly cold hand grasped her snow-white, slender neck. It was as if he was directly attacking her. Is he crazy? This is at school, how dare he? Felicia's eyes turned completely into upright cat pupils, but she remembered that the camera was still secretly recording. In order to get a video that could subdue Nian, she could only endure the other party's movements. Downward. Knowing that the other party had an extraordinary physique, he was not afraid of being damaged. Nian's 5 fingers exerted a little force and grasped the other party's neck again, which made Felicia's body tremble. After awakening her extraordinary ability, her body was now extremely sensitive. Felicia. Nian's free hand reached forward to brush her long, silvery hair aside. His right hand, still moving, gently nudged Felicia's ear, breathing out warm breath and the same words as before, as long as you promise to do one thing, I won't reveal your secrets. What thing? Do you want to continue here? Felicia's cat-like eyes grew colder and crueler, her silver-white lashes trembling violently as she bit her soft, lipstick-coated lips. As expected, facing her body, all men in the world were the same. Felicia was thinking with disgust when the boy's cold words reached her ears, don't pry into my affairs anymore. He dropped the words. Nian's fingers lifted, and he withdrew his right hand. He quickly rose from his chair and headed for the office door. She watched his back disappear around the corner. Felicia bit her lip, quickly straightened her slightly disheveled collar, and glanced at the camera in the corner. That little bastard. I won't let you go. Felicia's cat-like eyes gleamed with a cold gleam, and she gritted her teeth. Master this. From now on, you'll do whatever I want you to do. From the very beginning, Felicia hadn't wanted to hurt Nian, only to control him. Ever since the night before, she'd wanted to take strong control of everything, to break free from her weak and incompetent self. So, she didn't want to let Nian, who knew her most important secret, go unchecked. Yes, that's the cat's neuroticism, the queen syndrome. She doesn't approach situations with normal human reasoning. Just now, Felicia had been constantly hunting and tempting, intending to get Nian to break the rules and use it as leverage to control him. She hadn't expected Nian to go so boldly ahead. But the effect was the same. Felicia returned to her office chair, turned on her computer, and, using the mouse, exported the video footage captured by the camera. Outside the corridor, Nian let out a long breath, helplessly looking down at his right palm, where the warm fragrance still lingered. He had truly not wanted to do that. Originally, Nian had been ready to unconditionally promise to keep Felicia's secret. But then the other party threatened him, even mentioning Aunt Diana. Aunt Diana was Nian's Achilles heel. So, Nian didn't mind giving Felicia a lesson and a warning. Hopefully, this is the end of it. Nian felt a headache coming on. He felt that even at school, he wouldn't be able to continue living the casual life of a normal student. Oh, right. Nian suddenly remembered something, pulled his phone from his pocket, and headed to the bathroom. What's going on? Felicia sat in her office chair, stunned, staring at the lit computer screen on her desk. The video file she had just recorded was empty. The camera she had hacked had, in turn, been hacked by someone else. How did he do that? Felicia shuddered, her long silver hair bristling slightly, her black cat ears and tail nearly popping out. Wasn't this just given away for nothing? After school, Nian noticed that neither Gwen nor Kara had returned home with him. and wondered where they had gone. He hadn't even left the school gate, preparing to search for them, when a mental thought suddenly echoed through Nian's mind. Nian, something's happening. It was Guan Luo, the one at home, speaking through the jellyfish fragment attached to his body. What's happening? Nian paused, asking gravely. The matters he'd asked Guan Luo to investigate were all extremely important. So, if there was something wrong, it had to be something serious. Guan Luo continued his mental thought. Didn't you ask me to investigate SHIELD before? I arranged for a jellyfish fragment to infiltrate the parking lot at SHIELD headquarters and attach itself to one of the most important modified vehicles, presumably one used by a high-ranking SHIELD figure. And what happened? Guan Luo, that special vehicle is currently being driven into Washington, D.C. What? Nian was stunned. A suspected SHIELD figure had suddenly arrived in Washington from New York? Where SHIELD was present, bad things were bound to happen. No, something extraordinary was bound to happen. Where is that car in Washington now? Nian's curiosity grew, but he already had a vague suspicion. Guan Luo, it's heading towards your school. It's for sure. There's your photo and intelligence files in the car. They're definitely coming for you. It had expected Nian to be shocked. He hadn't. Nian narrowed his eyes, then sighed, a look of astonishment on his face. He'd guessed it. Nian walked out of the school gate alone and saw a modified car parked on the road outside. The car's door opened, and a one-eyed black man in a black windbreaker stepped out. Nian Prince. The one-eyed black man gazed at the young man with deep eyes. He tried to smile warmly, but suddenly forgot how, so he maintained a serious expression. Let me introduce myself. My name is Nick Fury, and I'm from a special department called SHIELD. You must be curious why I came to see you. If you want to know, just get in the car. Nick Fury expected to spend some time talking or proving his safety and integrity, but Nian nodded and opened the car door. Seeing the young student get in the car so familiarly and without any precautions, SHIELD. Director Nick Fury was visibly stunned. It was so smooth that he didn't even have time to say many words. Chapter 189, Meeting of Two Women, Supergirl and Spider-Woman. Earlier, in a schoolyard, a pair of well-fed snow rabbits appeared weak and helpless. Under the reckless pressure of the student hunters, their bodies trembled and curled up, revealing their deliciously tender white bellies in the grass. Outside the school gate. Aren't you leaving? Nian, already seated in the passenger seat of the modified car, knocked on the window and asked the dazed one-eyed black man outside. Nick Fury didn't know what to say. The other party's easy persuasion only made him look foolish. His dark face remained expressionless as he returned to the driver's seat and quickly restarted the modified car. The vehicle drove away from the high school at a steady speed. Now, on the rooftop of the school building, two beautiful girls in uniform skirts stood face to face. A cold breeze blew from the rooftop, causing their long platinum hair and short blonde hair to sway gracefully, their knee-length skirts swaying with them. This was clearly a beautiful and moving scene of youth, yet the atmosphere felt oppressive and tense. Two powerful, oppressive auras suddenly collided, stagnating the wind around them. It was as if they were in a silent confrontation. After a moment of silence, Gwen suddenly glanced down toward the school gate. When Kay's delicate face was slightly moved as she said with concern, Nian was taken away by a strange stranger. It's okay, Kara winked playfully, smiling faintly. Senior, you have my iron body, you won't be harmed. Besides, you took the initiative to get into the other person's car, which means they're not a bad guy at least. There was one more thing she left unsaid. Even if they were a bad guy, it didn't matter. Kara had memorized Nick Fury's license plate and the car's shape. If Nian uttered even a single cry for help, she would instantly fly over at Mach speeds. Even without Kara's actual words, Gwen understood what she meant. She chuckled, yeah, Kryptonians are truly amazing. She paused, her words becoming much colder. Since you've landed on Earth and integrated into human society, you should understand the principle of first come, first served, right? Senior, I gave you a chance. Kara shook her hand, reminding her, did you forget? You took the initiative to switch Saturday and Sunday with me. Gwen frowned slightly. Kara was right. She had indeed made the appointment first, but who knew it would fall on Sunday? And one more thing. Kara held up a delicate white finger, pondering. Even if the dates hadn't been switched, would you have been able to get together with Senior yesterday without me in the first place? It would probably have been just a normal birthday, right? What are you talking about, shameless? Gwen couldn't help but spit, her face flushing. The words were too blunt and explicit. But she had to admit, Kara had a point. If it weren't for the spur of Kara's Saturday incident, she and Nian might still have remained childhood sweethearts, finding it difficult to break through that barrier and take that step forward. So, Kara's presence was indeed an opportunity, and in some ways, it even played a crucial and positive role. But, no matter what, Gwen was still upset, very upset. It was like you've been guarding a cheesecake for years, trying every possible way to open it and eat it, but the strawberries in the center have already been eaten, and the cheese on top has been licked. It's hard not to be upset. Gwen took a deep breath, stared at Kara, and said, even though you were the first, what's going on between Nian and me, don't you mind? To say I don't mind, of course, would be a lie. Kara's eyes were as bright as gems, bathed in the sunlight, as if they were gilded with a layer of platinum. She spread her hands helplessly and said, but I've thought about it. Due to my Kryptonian constitution, I can't possess Senior alone. Plus, due to Senior's special abilities, instead of letting others interfere, it's better to let you, someone I know, join in. Kryptonians are indeed omnipotent. But Kara still seemed powerless in that area, the distorted illusion of high stimulation still fresh in her body. Gwen, we're naturally rivals in love. However, we can also form an alliance, to a certain extent. Kara blinked, speaking frankly and sincerely. Gwen was startled by her blunt reasoning, so much so that steam rose from her forehead, but she quickly understood what she meant. Let's take the cheesecake as an example. This particular cheesecake was simply too large. If she were to monopolize it all at home, she certainly wouldn't be able to finish the entire thing. Not only would the cheesecake be wasted, but if she didn't finish it, it would attract flies and rats to steal it. So, Kara's idea was to cut the cheesecake, keep half for herself, and let Gwen take the other half. By proactively sharing the remaining cheesecake with acquaintances, she wouldn't waste it, nor would it be snatched up by potentially greedy individuals. Who wants to lie with you? Gwen suddenly seemed to have a sudden thought, her face flushing with shame. She huffed, we'll always be enemies. Kara smiled, of course. I'm not planning on splitting it 50-50 with you. Someone's bound to have a bigger slice of the pie. It all depends on your ability. Okay, Gwen nodded, agreeing. I know you want to be a superhero, too, and have been working towards that goal. Coincidentally, I'm doing the same. Kara thought for a moment and suggested, how about we have a competition? You mean? Gwen's beautiful eyes narrowed. Whoever embarks on the path of a superhero first gets to choose Nian's weekend date first, Kara said confidently, gently stroking her shining platinum hair. No problem. But I'll bet our holidays. Gwen said, unwilling to be outdone. Then it's happily decided. Kara stepped forward, extending her hand. Gwen raised her hand without hesitation. Under the golden sunlight, the two beautiful girls held hands. No one knew. This was the rumored meeting between Supergirl and Spider-Woman, a meeting of two gods, to reach a point of competition and cooperation. However, the core agenda and ultimate goal of the meeting were not as sacred and grand as people imagined. From the school's rooftop, a powerful wind swept outward, carrying waves of dust. Gwen looked up, watching the tiny figure break the sound barrier and recede into the distance. Kara, although your judgment and analysis are accurate and you are quite calm and composed in this regard, there is one thing you didn't anticipate. Gwen muttered to herself, even if we two were combined, we wouldn't have the entire pie. A week has 7 days. Even if the weekends belonged to the two of them, the remaining 5 days would still belong to the other person. Their combined share of the pie might not even be as large as that one person's. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 190, Identity Exposed. Nian and S.H.I.E.L.D. Nian's brow furrowed suddenly in the car. What's wrong? The one-eyed black man glanced at him. Nothing. Nian shrugged, as if sensing someone was talking about him. Let's get back to the topic, Uncle. Sitting in the car, Nian tapped his fingers lightly on his thigh and said cheerfully, no, I should say, why would this director of SHIELD, such a powerful figure, come to see me? I investigated you. Your previous deputy instructor, Natasha Romanoff, was my subordinate. Nick Fury turned on autopilot and leaned back in the driver's seat. This was his opening statement, as if to demonstrate a sincerity in attitude to Nian. And then, Nian looked a little surprised. Why investigate me? In fact, he had known it all along, the moment Natasha appeared as the deputy instructor. Nick Fury pondered, you should know. Your guardian is the Justice League superhero, Wonder Woman, right? Nian nodded hesitantly. It would be a lie to say he didn't know. At the same time, a glimmer of understanding flashed in Nian's eyes. Sure enough, this was the reason SHIELD had targeted him. Initially, when Black Widow Natasha appeared at his school as an assistant instructor, Nian thought his identity as either the Triad Kitten or Magneto had been exposed. Later, he discovered that wasn't the case. After all, Black Widow ultimately stopped Cheetah for him, indicating she was likely unaware of his identity, or even his extraordinary abilities. Therefore, Nian suspected the problem lay with his aunt. With her frequent appearances as Wonder Woman on the world stage and a veteran of the Justice League, SHIELD naturally began investigating Wonder Woman's hidden identity. They soon discovered something even more astonishing. Wonder Woman, a demigod, had actually adopted and raised a human boy. Whatever the reason, SHIELD would want to know his origins and whether he was truly just an ordinary human. The only thing Nian couldn't figure out was that, based on his overall performance before Black Widow last time, he shouldn't have revealed his extraordinary abilities. Why did SHIELD come after him a second time? Nick Fury quickly provided the answer, asking, that cat in your house isn't just an ordinary cat, is it? Little Emperor. Nian was stunned. He quickly recalled in his mind when Little Emperor had been exposed, but he couldn't remember. However, the other party's accurate mention of it meant that Nick Fury was already aware of Little Emperor's extraordinary abilities. Nian didn't hide it. Indeed, Xiao Wang has abilities no other cat has. Nick Fury's single eye shone deeply, a hint of nostalgia in it. If I'm not mistaken, it's a metamorph. Metamorph. That's right. Metamorph, a terrifying and powerful alien species from outer space. Nick Fury looked at Nian solemnly, pulling back the black patch on his left eye, revealing visible scratches in a lifeless eye. A metamorph scratch can't be healed, so even with an eye transplant, I still won't be able to see again. Xiao Wang, you're so amazing. Nian's eyes shone with wonder. Nick Fury. He'd meant to scare Nian, but it seemed to have the opposite effect. If possible, we can help you adopt the metamorph cub and give it the best care. Nick Fury said solemnly. Nian suddenly realized. So, it wasn't him or Wanda that SHIELD was targeting again. Rather, it was the little house cat at home. That's it? Nian was a bit dumbfounded. With so many extraordinary people at home, and SHIELD had gone to great lengths to capture that cat? And this SHIELD director, the rumored big shot, turned out to be a cat scammer. I believe Little Emperor won't hurt me, and I still want to keep him by my side. Nian refused bluntly, saying, how about, Mr. Fury, talk to my aunt? Talk to Wonder Woman? Nick Fury fell silent. Actually, he had also negotiated with Batman when the Justice League was formed. SHIELD had originally envisioned combining the Justice League with the Avengers to form a single, super-large superhero team. While both alliances shared the goal of protecting Earth, their philosophies and systems were vastly different. The former, with Iron Man and Captain America as its spiritual leaders and pillars, centered the Avengers' decisive actions. The latter, centered around Batman and Superman, advocated nonviolence and acted with a righteous and just approach. Their philosophies and core values conflicted. This means that the two alliances may cooperate in the future, but they will never be able to unite. Therefore, in order to avoid interference when taking action, the Avengers and the Justice League maintain a subtle and tacit distance. For example, if an extraordinary event occurs in New York, the Avengers will naturally be the first to take over, while in places like Gotham City and Metropolis, the Justice League will have priority. The two are both competitors and allies with a temporarily good relationship. The relationship between the two alliances is somewhat similar to that between Gwen and Kara, except that the object of the cake metaphor has changed from Nian to the entire Earth in the present. Let's put it this way. Nick Fury decided he couldn't use the same tricks he'd used on children to trick the cat of Wonder Woman's adopted son, Nian. He mused, sometimes, we might need the power of that devourer. Could we borrow it sometime in the future? I see. Why didn't you say so earlier? Nian smiled. Since it's a loan, we can negotiate the price for renting out a little emperor. Nick Fury was slightly taken aback, mistaking the person sitting next to him for a small businessman, but he nodded readily. Sure, how much do you want for the rent? That's a bargain. 10 billion a day, Nian said flatly. Nick Fury. This kid, do you even know what $1 billion is? Or is it just the price of renting it out for a day, as in game currency? Looking at Nick Fury, whose face had darkened even further, Nian waved his hand. Let's do this. A discount, 100 million. $30 million at the most, Nick Fury said gravely. That's the highest I can offer. Then it's settled. Nian nodded readily, decisively selling Little Emperor. Such a massive deal, worth $30 million a day, had been struck with remarkable ease. If word got out, it would likely shock the world. Nian casually said, but I need to visit SYNOPSIS headquarters. I also want to understand what kind of work environment Little Emperor might find himself in. Okay, Nick Fury thought for a moment, then agreed. This weekend. Bring the Devourer cub, and I'll have someone pick you up for a tour of SYNOPSIS headquarters. Okay. Nian paused, tapping his thigh for a moment, then smiled. He hadn't wanted to borrow the cat. But thinking he could take advantage of the opportunity to enter SYNOPSIS headquarters and investigate Wanda's brother's whereabouts, he agreed to Nick Fury's offer. After all, what good would it do? Let Little Emperor just paddle along, and if anything goes wrong, retreat immediately. The Devourer still has venom in its body. If they unleash their true power, no one will be able to defeat them. SYNOPSIS, so closely connected to the Avengers. Nian suddenly became curious. Besides Black Widow, does this mysterious organization have any other extraordinary individuals? Well, pure curiosity. Chapter 191 Popular Science for Housemaids. Nian returned home to find someone already busy throughout the house. The living room floor and furniture had been polished to a crisp, fresh shine. The faint aroma of food wafted from the kitchen, creating a warm, homely feeling. Truly diligent. Nian felt a sense of inferiority. When he heard the door open, a small, crimson figure immediately emerged to greet him. A crimson-faced girl, dressed in a black school uniform skirt and a gauze-trimmed apron, tapped pink slippers. Her slender legs, clad in clean white socks, moved swiftly yet gracefully. She soon reached the door, knelt, and displayed the white silk scarf draped around her head and neck. The white scarf accentuated her long, crimson hair like a dazzling fiery maple leaf, a noble and beautiful sight. It also accentuated the delicate, even shape of her neck and the delicately sculpted features. Even though she had just been sweeping and mopping the floor, her appearance remained as pure and spotless as ever, untouched by dust or dirt. At first glance, no one would mistake her for a maid, that would be far too extravagant. Scarlet Girl, with her charming, adorable appearance and the aristocratic aura she had begun to cultivate, looked like a noble lady. Watching her place a pair of slippers before him, her smile of anticipation and joy unfurling, Nian felt his heart melt. Who could resist a pure, lovely scarlet maid, especially one with magical powers? Young master, welcome home. Wanda was about to rise before she felt a hand on her head. Nian touched Wanda's head, ruffling her neat crimson hair, which was tied with a white scarf, until it became a bit messy, revealing a few strands of hair. Huh? Wanda paused, her sweet face a bewildered expression. Had she done anything special recently? To suddenly receive such a reward, she was puzzled. Wanda didn't resist. Instead, she quickly squinted her eyes in comfort as the pat on her head smacked her. Her tense body relaxed. Wanda, you've been working hard and doing great, Nian praised her as he stroked her head. Not at all. Wanda's eyes narrowed, misty with moisture. Her slender neck, draped with a white silk scarf, lifted slightly. She subconsciously rubbed her head against a warm palm, suddenly feeling that all her hard work and dedication had been worth it. It's time to tell you, Nian said, looking down at the crimson maid and smiling. Some secrets about our family. Inside, in the living room. Nian casually reclined on the plush sofa, while Wanda politely sat beside her, kneeling politely. She leaned slightly forward, her tulle apron revealing her absolute domain. Her pale red eyes reflected the boy, her face radiating curiosity and joy. "What do you think of our family? Just tell the truth from your heart. No need for flattery or exaggeration," Nian said, gazing at Wanda. Without dwelling on it, Wanda spoke frankly. "Miss Diana is a very beautiful and kind person, very reliable. Being with her makes one feel safe and comfortable." Nian nodded, deeply agreeing. "After all, my aunt was always a deity." Wanda glanced at the young man, her face flushing slightly, her voice trailing off. "As for young Master Nian, he's very good, one of the best people to me. I'm not sure how to evaluate him." Nian continued, "What if we look at it from an outside perspective? What kind of family is ours?" Wanda thought carefully before answering. "Miss Diana is the pillar of the family, the breadwinner of the Prince family. She's an independent, adult woman, a shareholder and partner in a law firm. She's exceptional in appearance, manners, and behavior. She's wealthy and connects with many high-class people." She paused, hesitantly adding, "Specific background and age, unknown." After spending a few months here, Wanda had already noticed something. Miss Diana had no other family, rarely socialized with friends, and looked no older than 35. If, according to what happened 17 years ago, she could have raised the young master single-handedly until now, it seemed mysterious and strange no matter how one looked at it. Furthermore, recently, after studying magic with the Ancient One and stepping into the supernatural portal, Wanda could vaguely see, while her spirit was out of body, that Lady Diana's body, and even her soul, were glowing with a faint golden light, sacred and powerful. "It's normal that you find it strange." Nian smiled and said, "Aunt is different from us. She comes from the land of the old gods and is perhaps the only surviving ancient Greek deity. She came to the human world after World War I and has lived in Washington, D.C. for nearly 100 years. She's also the superhero Wonder Woman." Miss Diana, a deity, Wonder Woman. Wanda's eyes widened in surprise, and then she couldn't help but ask, "Young Master Nian, are you also a deity?" "No," Nian shook his head. "I'm just an ordinary human like you. I was just lucky enough to be picked up by Auntie 17 years ago." Wanda blinked. "I thought you were one too. After all, your body sometimes undergoes strange changes." Nian waved his hand. "That's just because of my special talents." "What special talents?" "Like the spells I learned." Wanda was curious. "Not quite like yours." Nian looked a little embarrassed, then said seriously, "I'll tell you about this sometime." "Oh," Wanda nodded obediently, not asking any further questions. Nian breathed a sigh of relief. The master of the dependents. Regardless of the triggering conditions or the specific manifestations, this ability isn't inherently a righteous one, but rather the exclusive gift of an evil villain. Nian was self-aware of this. For Wanda, it was still too early. Besides your aunt, a demigod, you should also have a realistic understanding of the rest of your family. Nian spoke, and without waiting for him to call out, the little emperor lazily sauntered from the balcony into the living room, carrying the glass jar on his tail. "Guan Luo, say hello," Nian called. "Hi, little Wanda. Although we've met many times, this is the first time we've spoken. My name is Guan Luo." Inside the jar, a colorful starfish, resembling an ornament, suddenly opened its single eye, bowed like a gentleman, and telepathically transmitted a message to Wanda. "Woo." Wanda froze for a moment, then suddenly threw herself into Nian's arms, a little startled. "Guan Luo. Don't stop me. Let me die." The starfish sadly tried to climb out of the glass jar. "I'm sorry, Mr. Starfish," Wanda said, blushing and apologizing hastily. "Venom," Nian called out. "Wanda." A black liquid oozes from the little emperor's orange fur, quickly coalescing into a ferocious tentacle. A head and face emerge from the black tentacle, its jagged white fangs parting. It grudgingly greets politely, its voice hoarse and shrill, "Hello. Woo." The little maid throws herself into the boy's arms again. Chapter 192 Wanda and the Mind Wand, Alice. Can Luo and Venom are both alien creatures. One can absorb energy, split its body, and achieve telepathic communication. The other is a symbiote, requiring the attachment of another biological host to survive. Bonding with a suitable host, it unleashes extremely powerful abilities. After introducing the family's two alien members to Wanda, Nian waved his hand, and little Emperor immediately lowered the glass jar with his cat tail. With a light leap, it landed on Wanda's knees. Nian stroked the orange cat's tiny torso, his mouth twitching slightly. This guy has been eating by for months, and his body hasn't changed at all. At least my maid has grown a little. Wanda whispered, "Little Emperor, isn't he also an alien creature?" "That's right. It's an alien species called metamorph, but its appearance is not much different from that of an earth cat." Nian shrugged, but he didn't let little Emperor extend his mouth tentacles, which were even more ferocious than venoms, so as not to scare Wanda. "Little Emperor, open your mouth. I'll get the two things I stored with you." Nian suddenly remembered something and gestured to the young element devourer. Gently, his fingers pried open the kitten's mouth, revealing its adorable, tiny fangs and delicate tongue. He continued to thrust his fingers inside. Under Wanda's startled gaze, he stuffed more than half his arm into the slightly widening mouth. Inside the element devourer's mouth is a dimensional space capable of storing many inanimate objects, Nian said, groping around in the cat's mouth. He quickly pulled out a bizarrely shaped alien instrument, no bigger than a palm. "Wrong one." Nian glanced at it and was about to put it back when the instrument flashed green and uttered a message in English, detecting this location as Planet C-53. The cosmic translator is adjusting to the local language. A cosmic translator, it seemed, was a pretty good alien gadget. Nian thought for a moment before setting the so-called translator aside. But then, a thought suddenly occurred to him. Xiao Wang's dimension is filled with numerous alien corpses and even the wreckage of alien warships. It looks like the graveyard of several alien civilizations, but in reality, it's an untapped treasure trove. If only we could take a good inventory of the alien artifacts in the elemental devourer's dimension. Nian reached into Xiao Wang's gaping mouth again, this time pulling out a metal sphere and a metal Rubik's Cube. However, since one hand couldn't hold both, the sphere fell out the moment Nian pulled his hand out. Wanda, standing nearby, quickly caught the sphere. However, the moment her hand touched the sphere, Wanda let go as if it were too hot, and the sphere rolled onto the sofa. "Are you okay?" Nian, noticing the panic on Wanda's face, grasped her hand and examined it carefully. His thumb rubbed a part of 5 tiny fingers, revealing her delicate, white palm. Fortunately, there were no visible injuries. "It's okay, I just felt like I got shocked," Wanda whispered, her face flushed. "Electricity." Nian, also relying on his steel body, grasped the metal sphere again, only to find it cold, with only the texture of the outer metal coating, and no other sense of electricity as Wanda had described. Nian's expression was solemn, looking down at the Rubik's Cube and the sphere in his left and right hands respectively. These were the spoils of the previous Battle of New York, the Cosmic Cube and the Mind Scepter. At the time, Nian, in Magneto Spider King mode, instinctively sensed danger and didn't want to leave these two mysterious objects at the scene, so he simply coated them with a metal coating and took them away. Since then, these two objects have been stored in the Devourer's dimension. Since he was taking Xiao Wang to visit SHIELD this weekend, Nian suddenly remembered this incident and, just in case, he temporarily took the two objects out and left them at home. Now it seems, even coating it with a special spider silk metal film couldn't prevent it from failing. Nian pondered, "Even I don't know the exact origins of these two items, so don't touch them lightly. I'll hide them somewhere in the house, and next time we have a chance, we'll go ask the Ancient One." "Okay," Wanda nodded, no objection. Nian didn't hide them deliberately, but rather placed them in the right places in the room as decorations. If the items weren't too large, he'd simply use them as tabletop pads. It turns out the more unpretentious the hiding, the more secretive it is. By the way, there's a new member in the family. Nian put away the items he'd retrieved from the dimension and returned to the living room, introducing Wanda to the last member of the family, Alice. "Say hello." As he finished speaking, the lights, the television, even the washing machine, the iron, and even Nian and Wanda's phones, every electronic device in the living room, started up. "Hello, Miss Wanda. I'm Alice, the housekeeper. Looking forward to your guidance." A pleasant, emotionless female voice echoed from the living room. "Housekeeper." Wanda's eyes widened. "Alice, yes, I'm Nian Prince's assistant housekeeper. From now on, you and I will be colleagues." Wanda was stunned, as if she wasn't prepared for the situation. "Okay, Alice, stop teasing her." Nian smiled and explained to Wanda, She's a highly intelligent artificial intelligence. Let's just say, a special system program. Yes, this was the special, ultra-high-tech technology Nian had discovered in the parallel universe Spider-Man's legacy, a piece of intelligent system code embedded in a USB drive. When the USB drive was plugged into a computer, the AI activated from it used it as a springboard to take root and revive in the present world. It was an initialized AI, with the highest command authority, by default, Nian. Nian named it Alice. After all, artificial intelligence doesn't exist in the real world, even more intangible than the soul. But in today's human world, it's omnipresent. This was also the secret reason he'd secretly used to delete the video Felicia had recorded at school during the day. Felicia's black camera, no matter how advanced, couldn't handle a technologically derived artificial intelligence. Nian issued a command, Alice, grant Wanda advanced command permissions to the artificial intelligence. From now on, you'll be partners, and you'll need to cooperate on many matters. Alice, understood. Advanced permissions have been granted. I'll quickly adapt to Miss Alice. Wanda took a deep breath, her face flushing. Just now, she actually felt a little jealous of an artificial intelligence. Wanda's eyes were firm, her heart brimming with fighting spirit. Even an artificial intelligence couldn't steal the position of future head steward of the Prince family. Chapter 193, Future Era, Agents of SHIELD. Just as Wanda was contemplating something she could achieve that AI couldn't, Alice's sweet voice rang through Nian's phone. Master, $30 million has been transferred into your account. What? Wasn't even the title Master unique anymore? Wanda was initially shocked, then quickly stunned. $30 million? That S.H.I.E.L.D. director is quite trustworthy, isn't he? Nian's lips curled upward, but he knew full well that the money from the cat loan transaction wasn't meant for him so much as it was for his aunt standing behind him. If his aunt wasn't Wonder Woman, regardless of whether she could obtain the money, given the partnership between S.H.I.E.L.D. and the government, they could easily have found another way to obtain the Devourer Cub. $30 million, for the average person, that's why Wanda was surprised. But Nian thought it was nothing special. After all, his aunt also had a hidden fortune of $1 billion. These so-called huge sums, once invested in the supernatural realm, would be nothing more than a drop in the bucket. For example, any set of Iron Man or Batman's armor starts at hundreds of millions of dollars, not to mention the investments and operations in spaceships and artificial intelligence. Nian wasn't a penny pincher. Having enough money was enough for now. After a certain point, it was just a bunch of data. It was better to transform it into a foundation that could be controlled in the future, or even something more valuable. Now that I have the startup capital, it's time to start a business. Nian stroked his chin. He pondered as he formulated his instructions. Alice, use this money to help me acquire a technology or biological research and development company under a different account name. Let's call the company Future Chronicle. The first thing we'll do after establishing this new company is to digest the technological designs and product concepts from Spider-Man's legacy. Oh no, the gifts, especially the nanotechnology. By the way, let's research this cosmic translator later. Nian would do whatever he wanted, fearless of failure. With the resources at his disposal, failure was a real possibility. As for the operations, Alice could handle them. Yes, Master. Alice agreed quickly. Despite lacking a supercomputer or remote satellite support, the AI Alice was currently operating at less than 10% of its capacity, but it was more than enough to handle these simple tasks. Wanda, standing by, hadn't recovered from her shock. The news she'd received today was truly shocking, almost overturning her previous understanding. At this moment, Wanda suddenly remembered that butler Alfu had mentioned that the Prince family possessed a status comparable to that of the Wayne Group. He had warned her, as the future housekeeper of the Prince family, that she need not kowtow to anyone, including Wayne Bruce, the head of the Wayne Group. Otherwise, she would only damage the reputation of her master and her family. Wanda, do you understand now why I'm telling you all this? Nian stared intently at Wanda beside him. His fingers hooked a white silk scarf forward, causing the dazed girl to tilt her head back slightly. Her crimson hair cascaded down her shoulders, her face slender and flawless, like a proud and pure little angel. I need you to understand your future direction and goals. You still have so much to learn. Of course, if one day you want to give up and just live the life of an ordinary girl, please tell me then. Master, Will you abandon Wanda? Wanda nervously grasped the boy's hand, clasped in a white silk scarf. How could that be possible? Nian laughed. Quite the contrary. I'm the one asking you to stay. After all, without you, I can't take care of myself now. He paused, then said, I'm talking about the future. If you want to leave here when you grow up, then I'd rather not grow up. Wanda said urgently. Please let me stay with you forever. This week, I'll study finance diligently. There's no need to rush. Let's take it step by step. Nian patted her head, pondering. One more thing. He looked at Wanda, who looked puzzled, and finally shook his head. Forget it, let's talk about that later. Nian had wanted to talk to Wanda about her brother's whereabouts and the matter related to SHIELD, but since the kidnapping case hadn't been fully investigated, and to avoid worrying Wanda, Nian decided to keep it secret for the time being. Wait. This weekend, I'll go to SHIELD headquarters and confirm it, then it won't be too late. New York. SHIELD headquarters, a secret basement with extremely high security. It's equipped with a shooting range, a ring, sandbags, barbells, and other fitness equipment, yet the vast interior feels like a private area, deserted and empty. This is the SHIELD agents' workout room, but only those with level 10 clearance can enter. SHIELD agents are divided into levels of authority and missions, and level 10 is the highest. Above level 10 is Director. Even with SHIELD's countless agents, only a few possess level 10 clearance today. After all, a level 10 agent represents a high probability of taking over the position of SHIELD Director in the future. At this moment, inside. Tick. A drop of water dripped onto the polished floor, gathering into a small puddle. The puddle reflected the figure of an adult woman above. The woman looked to be in her early 18th year, her natural dark blonde hair falling just past her shoulders. Her youthful, beautiful face seemed a bit cold. A navel-bearing sports tank top draped over her upper body, tightly hugging her towering, firm breasts, and tight black pants draped over her lower body, creating a seductive curve to her hips. She was in a position similar to a push-up, but with her hands resting parallel to the ground. She seemed to be holding her body steady, her curves etched into her exquisite figure. Time ticked by. After 10 minutes of motionless stillness, her breathing gradually became heavier and faster. Sweat dripped from her sun-bleached skin, flowing along her delicate, fair complexion, along the curves of her collarbone and waistline, and onto the floor beneath her. Beep. The retro black communicator beside her lit up. The woman maintained one hand supporting her body, freeing the other to answer the communicator. Shuck, you're on a mission. Stay home this week. Nick Fury's calm voice boomed from the other end of the communicator. Send me the mission brief, the woman code-named Shock said flatly. A moment later, the woman who received the mission briefing let out a surprised chuckle. Is the director serious? This time, the target was clearly a teenager. 17 years old, a high school student? Chapter 194 High school student and female agent, the first step to becoming a superhero. A few days later. Saturday morning. Fortunately, Felicia's previous one-handed dribbling warning had been effective. She'd been quiet these past few days and hadn't bothered Nian again. But Nian still felt far less relaxed than he used to be at school. So, on the first day of school break, Nian slept until 10 in the morning. After eating breakfast, which served as lunch, it was already almost 11. After 11, Nian changed into a long, thin casual outfit for going out, shouldered his backpack, and made a series of preparations. After double-checking that he had everything he had, Nian called out to the balcony, "Time to go, little emperor." Meow. The little orange cat barely opened its sleepy eyes, flicked its short tail, and finally perked up and followed Nian's steps. As Nian walked out of the community gate, he spotted the modified car from last time parked on the road outside. The modified car was a black muscle car, seemingly with additional armor protection. While the interior couldn't be seen from the outside, it was still easy to identify. Nian approached with a familiar air, opened the passenger door, and climbed in. "Uncle Director, I'm afraid you've been waiting for a long time." Nian paused, realizing that the person sitting in the driver's seat was a woman. Her features and appearance looked remarkably youthful and beautiful, with a touch of coolness similar to Black Widow's. She was also wearing a tight black leather suit, similar to Black Widow's, that defined her voluptuous and graceful figure from neck to hip. "Who are you?" As Nian stared at her, The female agent codenamed Shock also observed Nian closely, her beautiful eyes growing more suspicious. The person Director Fury had specifically asked her to bring to SHIELD headquarters and protect was actually just an ordinary high school student. And the high school boy was not only dressed in casual clothes but also had a small orange cat on his shoulder, looking like he was on a tour. And as a level 10 agent, he looked more like a nanny or tour guide. Shock was speechless, but his curiosity only grew. What was going on? However, Nick Fury didn't give Shock too many details, simply a photo, and told her to take the boy to SHIELD headquarters. Oh, and the mission specifically mentioned one thing: be careful with the little cat the boy is carrying, don't touch it. An ordinary boy, an ordinary cat, a strange mission. Shock frowned. She instinctively repelled the mission of protecting someone, but for some reason, the moment she saw the boy, it was hard to refuse. Now, facing Nian's question, Shock replied coldly, "Sky, just call me Sky." In Washington, on a street in the next neighborhood, a short-haired girl was browsing books in a library. At that moment, her spider sense detected that the surrounding staff and customers had left the store. Gwen was squinting when she saw a gentleman in a suit and tie walk in. "You're..." Gwen looked at him, a little surprised. "Mr. Stark." "Yes, I'm Tony Stark." The gentleman removed his sunglasses, revealing a charming, stubbled face, brimming with confidence and pride. He certainly had the right to be confident and proud. As a leading veteran hero of the Avengers, Iron Man, a billionaire, and the head of Stark Industries, he was a figure on par with gods in New York City. "Oh," Gwen replied, then lowered her head to continue browsing for books. "Stark, aren't you curious about why I came to see you?" Stark took a deep breath and asked in a deep voice. "Are you looking for me?" Gwen looked up curiously, asking, "What's there to be found for me? If it's just the police officer's daughter, there's really nothing to be found for. But if it's Spider-Woman, that's another story," Stark said, pulling a photo from his jacket pocket. It showed Spider-Woman soaring high above the city buildings. And then, Gwen's expression remained unchanged, as if she didn't care if others knew her identity. Stark. He had always been very sociable, and he had never found communication with Gwen so difficult. But, kids are kids, as long as there's something that can impress them like a toy. Stark thought to himself and placed the silver briefcase in his right hand on the desk. With a fingerprint unlock button, the elegant and mysterious silver briefcase suddenly opened. Gwen's attention was indeed drawn. As she watched curiously, the silver briefcase's lid opened. Inside lay a black and white Spider-Man suit, with exquisite texture and streamlined design, the spider pattern on the chest shimmering. This is a tight-fitting suit made of a special material. It's comfortable and durable, with built-in web mode attacks and intelligent systems. Stark spoke eloquently, but before he could finish, he saw the girl's gaze averted with obvious disappointment. Stark's face twitched, and then he spoke in a powerful, deep voice. "I'll develop another one later, based on the Iron Man suit, to complement your metal spider suit. Just wait until I find a special, highly malleable metal." "You mean, this?" Gwen said, rolling up her left sleeve to reveal a mechanical watch band on her wrist. As she gently tapped the watch's display, the metal band instantly expanded and deformed, quickly enveloping the girl's entire left hand. The platinum coating, like a faint stream of light, continued to extend inwards along her arm. In less than 3 seconds, the short-haired girl's body was completely covered in a platinum coating, forming a thin yet resilient spider armor that fitted her skin perfectly. The spider pattern on her chest contrasted with the cold luster of the metal. Stark. Gotham City, Wayne Building, located in the heart of the city. Under a gloomy sky, on an open-air rooftop. Mr. Bruce, thank you for teaching me how to be a superhero. After all, it was Superman Clark who asked me to do it. The criminals in Gotham City are extremely dangerous, so you must pay special attention to your own safety. A girl with white hair and a tall man stood there, looking down from the rooftop, offering a bird's-eye view of the bustling city. I'll give you the contact information of a local police officer named Gordon, who can handle a lot of complicated and trivial matters. Bruce Wayne paused, suddenly realizing that he was more concerned about the safety of the criminals than the girl from Krypton. But if the girl is allowed to go to other cities, it will obviously be more dangerous. Bruce looked at the girl and repeated his reminder, it doesn't matter how much economic items are destroyed. When an incident occurs, you just need to ensure the safety of the citizens. In addition, Try to spare the lives of those criminals. Contact Gordon afterwards and he will deal with the rest of the mess. Okay, I'll try my best. Kara blinked and agreed. Chapter 195. 19-year-old Sky, don't be greedy. It was midday. The weather was clear and sunny. On the road to New York City, the rugged black car reflected the receding cityscape on either side, and the modified muscle car was still moving at a steady pace in the Washington area. Agent Sky, in the driver's seat, seemed intently focused on the road, her beautiful eyes fixed on the road ahead. But in reality, after picking up the person, her peripheral vision kept tracking the passenger seat next to her, her attention never shifting. Sky noticed that the black-haired boy, after getting in with his little orange cat, seemed calm and composed, even a little lazy. It seemed as if he hadn't gotten enough sleep and was about to catch up on some more. The sunlight filtered through the car window onto him, exuding a youthful and lazy air. No matter how Sky looked at him, he looked like an ordinary high school student, the kind who studied hard and was obedient. But was this boy, who had a connection with the director of SHIELD and was going to visit SHIELD headquarters, really all he seemed? Did Nick Fury not give her the boy's information because he wanted her to draw conclusions through her own analysis and judgment, and he didn't want the existing intelligence to mislead her? Sky was thinking about this. Suddenly, on the passenger seat, the boy who was stroking the little orange cat seemed to remember something, and suddenly reached out to pick up his school bag. Sky's body and mind couldn't help but tense up a little, his narrow and beautiful eyes narrowed slightly, and his hands holding the steering wheel tightened. Then, he saw Nian reach into his school bag and fumble around, and with a hiss, he took out a bag of open potato chips. Sky? Nian took out the potato chips and ate them happily, shaking the bag of potato chips, making a crisp and beautiful sound. He seemed to notice the side glances next to him, and politely asked Sky beside him, Sky, would you like some? Original flavor. No need. Sky pursed his lips, as cold and taciturn as ever. Very cool. Okay then. Nian casually pulled out a potato chip and passed it toward his knees. Little Emperor, who was lying on his lap, immediately grabbed it, making a crisp sound as his teeth chewed it. Little Emperor, stop licking, it's itchy. Nian called out. But the little orange cat extended its delicate tongue and licked the potato chip crumbs off his fingers, leaving them glistening. Seeing this, Sky pursed her lips even tighter. She felt something was wrong. For a moment, she wanted to be fed. Sky, how old are you? 19. A 19-year-old agent? Only 2 years older than me, that's impressive. Yes. So, what do your parents do? My father's a scientist. Sky stopped herself in time, realizing she'd been tricked into giving such a natural and truthful response. Are you testing me? What's your intention? Sky glanced coldly at the passenger seat, then froze. The boy's head was tilted to the side, his eyes closed, breathing evenly and slowly. Asleep? Sky gazed at the boy's clean, handsome profile, bathed in the golden sunlight, and fell into a long silence. Faced with the boy's unguarded, trusting demeanor and his naturally lazy sleeping posture, she couldn't react with her usual agent's demeanor. Her defenses were gradually crumbling. Had she not rested properly in too long? Sky exhaled softly, pursing her slightly moist lips, and continued to look at Nian. She kept steering with one hand, unbuckling her seatbelt with the other, then reached over to the passenger seat, reaching for the bag of chips the boy was holding. Sky's right hand was about to grab the bag of chips, but before she could, a small cat's paw rested on her hand. Sky froze, his gaze meeting that of the small orange cat, whose sleepy eyes were slightly open, sprawled across the boy's lap. Facing those tiny, ethereal green eyes, Sky felt a chill run down his spine, goosebumps breaking out all over his skin. Danger. Snap! In the oppressive atmosphere of the car, the boy seemed to wake up, clapping his left hand on the cat's paw and Sky's hand. Don't be greedy. Nian scolded. The little cat blinked in grievance, retracted its paw, and burrowed its head between his legs. Sky couldn't help but panic, and just as quickly retracted his hand, explaining quickly, I saw you were asleep, and I was afraid the bag of chips would fall, so I... Thank you, Sky, Nian smiled. And I've finished the chips. Sky settled back into the driver's seat and buckled his seatbelt, still feeling a burning sensation on his cheeks. You. Sky was about to say something when he saw Nian frown. He inexplicably warned, watch out to the left. What? Sky was stunned for a moment, then instinctively glanced toward the nearby left window. He saw a police car barreling down at high speed. Bang! The police car, showing no sign of slowing down, slammed into the left side of the modified car, instantly forcing the car, which was waiting for the light to turn, to the right, sideways on the highway. And Nian hugged the kitten tightly, his body bouncing. As soon as he finished speaking, 2 more police cars, one in front and one behind, without sirens blaring, slammed into the front and rear of the modified car like zombies. Then, a bang sounded from the right side of the car. A 4th police car followed, and together with the first 3, they completely surrounded the modified car, blocking it on the highway. In just 3 seconds, 4 police cars rammed the modified car from different directions at high speeds, as if they'd practiced many times. The car caved in slightly, its body shaking violently. Nian, are you okay? Sky, in the driver's seat, clutched her dizzy head. She glanced at the boy in the passenger seat, who appeared even calmer than she, holding the kitten. It's okay, but it should be fine soon. Nian soothed the small orange cat in his arms and calmly gestured outside. Outside, several more black cars braked to a stop on the road outside, surrounding the modified car from all sides. The doors opened, and armed men dressed as paramilitary police officers emerged with guns drawn. This is clearly planned. Are they coming for you? Sky asked, startled. Not really, I'm just a high school student, Nian said, pondering the question. Given his status, he'd likely have no enemies. Even if he did, there wouldn't be any need for such a grand display to deal with a high school student, right? Unless his special identity from his previous mode was exposed, or perhaps it was an enemy force drawn from his aunt's side. No. Nian quickly noticed that they were still within the Washington area, not completely out of the area. If they knew of his special identity from some mode, or were enemies from his aunt's side, they would at least wait until he left Washington before taking action. So, based on all the factors, this was most likely targeting the current female agent. Chapter 196 Brave Shockwave Girl, Not Afraid of Difficulties. Nian's gaze fell on Sky. Before he could think too much, the armed men surrounding the modified car opened fire, sending the car trembling violently again. Over a dozen assault rifles, firing at such close range, instantly reduced the modified car's exterior to a terrifying honeycomb pattern. The windows were covered in spiderweb-like cracks, threatening to burst. It was as if they were intent on killing. It's okay. Conventional firearms alone can't penetrate this car's armor. Sky reassured Nian. What about unconventional weapons? Nian asked, petting his cat. Unconventional weapons, it depends on the type. Sky's explanation abruptly ended. Outside, several enemy personnel were visible, standing in front of the car window, carrying a large window-breaking device. Sky, does this count? Nian asked curiously. Pure curiosity, really? Of course not. Sky gritted his teeth and immediately issued a voice command to the car's intelligence system, activate the propulsion system immediately, and rush out. The propulsion system is damaged, it will take 10 seconds to activate. Bang! A device similar to a metal stake slammed into the outer window, causing more cracks to appear. The car system responded as if under the groaning of the car body, window protection damaged by 60%. Bang! The second heavy hammer followed, completely blocking the window into a white mess, window protection damaged by 32%. He couldn't withstand the fourth blow. It was too late. Wait until the propulsion system activated. Sky thought about this and said calmly, prepare the vehicle's weapons. Nian, squat down and hide. Watch out for the bullets. Oh. Nian actually cooperated and hugged the cat. Bang! The third window-breaking hammer fell, shaking the car's windows to the point of collapse. The car's systems were overwhelmed, window protection damaged by 2%. Now! Sky shouted with a deep, cold voice. She raised her hand downwards, and a Gatling gun suddenly emerged from the driver's seat. Ta-da-da! Sky firmly held the trigger, firing a barrage of shots outward. The firepower rivaled that of the dozen or so assault rifles she had fired earlier, instantly reducing the dozen or so armed enemies outside to a bloody mess. Boom! Sky activated a hidden button, and the Gatling gun unleashed a rocket, sending a parked black car flying into the air. The explosion engulfed many of the hidden enemy figures. Push the system to restart. Sky turned off the Gatling gun and stepped on the accelerator. The modified car instantly rammed the police car in front of it, breaking free from the encirclement like a wild horse, accelerating towards the highway ahead. Counterattack, escape, all in one go. Sky, you're quite capable. Nian praised, hugging the cat and settling back into his seat. Sky panted, gripping the steering wheel as she sped away. Even she was startled by the previous scene. That encirclement, it was clearly a long-planned operation. What force could it be? Are there still enemies blocking us ahead? Nian asked curiously. You ask me, how do I know? Sky had been fine, but the young man's words gave her a foreboding feeling. As soon as he finished speaking, in the middle of the busy highway ahead of the car, a mysterious man with disheveled hair stood in the road. His face was obscured by a mask, but his ruthless eyes glared coldly at the vehicles. He wielded a custom-made weapon resembling a gun and quickly fired a round, pancake-shaped projectile forward, piercing the underside of Sky and Nian's car. Not good. Sky's beautiful eyes narrowed. It was too late. The pancake-shaped shell burrowed directly under the vehicle, becoming lodged beneath it. But something unexpected happened to Sky and the mysterious man. The shell didn't explode. The battered car continued its rapid progress, forcing the mysterious man to roll out of the way, letting the car hurtle by. Inside the car, Sky breathed a sigh of relief, a hint of confusion in her beautiful eyes. No matter how she looked at it, it was too thrilling and bizarre. If the shell had just exploded, the force would have been enough to flip the entire car to the ground. If it had, I wouldn't be able to pretend anymore. The young man beside her curled his lips slightly, stroking the kitten's bristling fur. Just now, he had used the fragmented jellyfish clinging to the car's exterior to prevent the pancake-shaped bomb from detonating. From the moment of the attack until now, Nian had merely watched the spectacle unfold. After all, these modern, conventional, and unconventional firearms and ammunition couldn't actually harm a man of steel. So, like watching a bunch of clowns outside, they were causing all sorts of trouble, without any real tension or overreaction. However, Nian still considered letting female agent Sky handle the attack. After all, if Sky was unable to stop it, even if he wouldn't be in danger, he would be forced to expose some of his own abilities. They're coming again. Nian glanced out the intact passenger side window. He could see two cars speeding up in pursuit, with a mysterious man crouching on the roof of one. Nian couldn't help but cheer Sky, who was sitting in the driver's seat, up. Come on, Sky. Don't be afraid of difficulties. You, stop talking. Sky gave him a sullen look and commanded the car's onboard system, initiate vertical flight. Flight system disabled. What about the autopilot? Autopilot disabled. What else isn't damaged? The air conditioning system is intact. Sky was silent for a moment, watching the two cars closing in on them. He couldn't help but ask, Nian, have you ever driven a car? I've driven bumper cars. What's wrong? Nian blinked. You drive. Sky said, unbuckling Nian's seatbelt with one hand. Are you sure? Nian didn't refuse, just inquiring. I'm sure, hurry. Sky urged. Nian immediately stopped hesitating. He placed the little emperor in the passenger seat, climbed over to the driver's seat next to him, and sat directly on Sky's lap. Sky was wearing a black, custom-made leather suit, which slid smoothly against his body, seemingly clinging to him without any obstruction. Nian simply found the seat cushions too comfortable and luxurious. Drive carefully. Sky released the steering wheel, letting Nian take over. He took a deep breath and spread his palms out horizontally to his sides. Wait, this position. At the same time, two cars approached the modified car, one on the left and the other on the right. Atop the roof of one car, a mysterious man, gripping a corner of the roof with one hand, braced against the strong wind, as if he were about to leap over. Get out of my way. At that moment, Sky snorted coldly, like a noble and domineering queen, with an awe-inspiring aura. Buzz! Exclamation mark. A mysterious and powerful force vibrated and emanated from the air, like an invisible wave of energy sweeping outwards. This was a shock wave. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 197 Death of Nian. Buzz. This is. Nian narrowed his eyes in a serious tone. With his spider sense, He could better sense the power used by Sky behind him. The air around him first emitted a slight but significant vibration. As soon as the vibration appeared, the power multiplied and spread outward. Like dropping a stone into a calm lake. Female Agent Sky injected a strange power into this space. Outside, with his right arm firmly grasping the roof of the speeding vehicle, a mysterious man in a bulletproof uniform and a black mask was about to leap directly to the severely damaged modified car in front. But at this moment, the mysterious man seemed to have noticed something. He suddenly released his right arm and rolled his body backwards. Almost at the moment he made this move, swish! Exclamation mark. A shockwave, indistinct but real, ripped outward, shattering the windshields and windows of two enemy vehicles hot on the heels of the modified car. The armed men inside were shattered and exploded like balloons, their bodies shattered from the inside out. Buzz! The fronts of the two vehicles, previously speeding, were simultaneously lifted upward, paused for a half-second, rolled several times in place, and then, in a shower of blood and shards of glass, they toppled sideways onto the road behind them, meeting their destruction. The modified car stumbled, then drifted strangely in place before continuing forward. Well done, Sky. You had such a powerful ability earlier, why didn't you use it earlier? Why are you running so terribly? Nian sighed, controlling the steering wheel. Instead of replying, Sky went limp, slumped over his back. This open position, the jolt of the car. Nian felt the undeniable power of another shockwave. Sky, are you okay? Nian asked hurriedly. No, I'm just a little dizzy. Sky covered her smooth forehead, where dark blonde hair was scattered. Her beautiful eyes were a little distracted, making her look a little confused and dazed. She supported Nian with her other hand, and panted palely, my special ability can't be used casually, otherwise I would have used it long ago. I can see, Nian nodded, and suggested, that guy is not dead. Sky forced herself to look up at the half-remaining rearview mirror. She could see a tall and mysterious figure slowly rising in the middle of the road between the two cars behind her, which had turned into a blazing fireball. The mysterious man's eyes were cold between his messy hair. The right side of his bulletproof uniform had been torn, revealing a metallic silver mechanical arm with a large red pentagram branded on it. It's a former Soviet agent. No, it's the Winter Soldier. I've heard of him. He's responsible for over 20 assassinations in the past 50 years. Sky's body gradually recoiled, and she leaned back, letting her rounded, large figure return to its original shape. Nian said nonchalantly, who cares if they're the Winter Soldier or the Summer Soldier? They won't be able to catch us this time. Unless there are still some of them ahead. It seems there are some. The modified car was entering a bridge, and traffic control was clearly visible on the bridge ahead. Two police cars were stuck in the middle of the bridge, and several armed men disembarked, carrying heavy, cylindrical weapons. At first glance, they looked like RPGs. Sky? In 19 years, Sky, the shockwave girl, had never felt the urge to silence someone. If Nian knew Sky's thoughts, he would feel very innocent. This wasn't a malicious remark, but a predictive warning from his spider sense. Enemies ahead, the Winter Soldier behind. Sky? If you can escape, go ahead and leave me alone. Nian was unfazed, as if unafraid of life or death. How could I abandon you when the mission isn't complete? Sky's face was filled with stubborn determination. She stomped on the accelerator, sending the modified car hurtling forward. Let's get out. A strange light flashed in Nian's eyes. Then, with a whoosh, a cannonball, trailing a blazing, blinding flame, hurtled towards the front of the modified car. As if in a panic, Nian accidentally swerved the steering wheel and slammed on the brakes, sending the modified car into a strange drift, barely avoiding the rocket launcher. But the rocket still exploded right next to the front of the car. Boom! A monstrous explosion erupted on the bridge, shattering the car's windshield. A small amount of flame, accompanied by a powerful gust of wind, rushed into the car. The smoke-filled car continued its pace, crashing through the bridge's stone guardrail and plummeting 50 meters into the river below. Gurgling. On the bridge, the Winter Soldier stood atop a guardrail, coldly gazing down at the submerged car. He picked up a custom-made communicator and spoke hoarsely, "The intelligence is wrong." Afternoon. The setting sun was about to sink behind the city horizon, its rays casting a shimmering light across the river. From a quiet, Deserted riverbank, a few seagulls suddenly took flight. A voluptuous, graceful figure in black broke through the surface of the river, emerging from the shallows with a young boy in her arms, followed by a small orange cat swimming vigorously. Both the person and the cat were drenched, the lingering scent of gunpowder still lingering on them. Nian, we're safe. We've escaped. Sky laid the boy down on the grassy bank and gently patted his face, but the boy remained with his eyes closed, unresponsive. Sky looked down at Nian's torn, charred shirt, remembering that because Nian had been sitting in front of her, he'd been hit harder by the rocket's aftermath. Wake up. The mission isn't over yet. You can't die yet. Sky's heart suddenly raced with inexplicable panic. She wiped the unconscious boy's face with her hand, revealing his sunny, handsome features. Then she unbuttoned his shirt, revealing a surprisingly muscular chest beneath. She clasped her palms together and squeezed his chest. Sky leaned down without hesitation, her fingers parting the boy's lips. His dark blonde hair fell with him, and he pressed his pale mouth tightly, but reluctantly. It wasn't cold. On the contrary, it was warmer than her own. Sky was puzzled, but her eyes lit up with excitement as she repeated the same movements. But for half a minute, the boy still showed no noticeable reaction. Meow. The little orange cat, seemingly unable to bear it any longer, suddenly pounced on Nian's open chest. Nian's eyelashes trembled, and he opened his eyes a crack, finally waking up. He muttered in confusion, I'm still alive? Is my body intact? Let me see. Sky reached out and touched his body, feeling around to confirm, and soon revealed a faint smile. You're okay, intact. Really? This must be a miracle, enough for me to brag about to my classmates for a year. Nian stood up, sighing as if he had survived a disaster. Almost died? He was faking it. Chapter 198 The Extraordinary Female Agent Killer Boy. On the shore. The night was enchanting, a gentle breeze softly blowing. The urban areas on both sides lit up with neon lights. No, what happened today must be kept secret after we get back. Sky extended a slender, white index finger and placed it in front of Nian's lips, which still retained their former softness and luster. No problem. Nian suddenly felt the urge to bite, but couldn't resist. Sky gently wiped the lipstick from the boy's lips. Realizing that both her warning and her current action seemed to be departing from her typical agent stance, Sky withdrew her hand and turned away. The last glimmer of sunset crimson flashed across her beautiful, intact profile, returning to her usual cool and indifferent demeanor. What should we do next? Nian thought, and temporarily handed the decision to Sky. This also suited his current student persona. Sky pondered, I'll contact SHIELD first to confirm the situation. Those people were right in the city center. They even dared to attack the director's personal seat, and with the Winter Soldier, they're definitely not just any ordinary organization. Wait a minute, Nian blinked. You mean, the director's personal seat? Yes, when we left SHIELD headquarters this morning, the director and I exchanged cars in the parking garage. Sky paused, her beautiful eyes widening. No way. It wasn't that she hadn't thought of that, but subconsciously, she felt that no one would dare attack the director of SHIELD in the city, so she instinctively avoided the question. Now that she thought about it, the scale of the attack, the meticulously planned attack, clearly weren't aimed at them. New York, underground in an ordinary building on a busy street. This was a secret SHIELD location. It housed not only an armory and an intelligence room, but also a state-of-the-art emergency room staffed by top-notch doctors. Now, outside the emergency room corridor, a woman with luscious red hair, her delicate, beautiful face etched with fatigue, her eyes filled with sadness and nostalgia, leaned against the outer wall of the emergency room. There was an unsettling silence. A man and woman entered the dimly lit hallway. Natasha, the cool, younger woman waved. You're here, Daisy. Natasha glanced up at the female agent, then quickly widened her eyes, staring at the man next to her in surprise. Why are you here? Long time no see. No, a month. Former deputy instructor, Natasha. The young man emerged from the light and greeted her with the same familiarity. Daisy, why is he here? Natasha didn't wait for the boy to answer, staring intently at Sky, wondering if he was in love. Sky placed herself in front of Nian, spreading her hands and explaining, he's the man the director sent me to Washington to pick up today. That's why we were attacked by the Winter Soldier. I see. Natasha breathed a sigh of relief. How's the director? Sky asked. You're a little too late. Natasha's eyes dimmed as she gestured toward the nearby ER viewing window. Sky shuddered as if struck by a shock and hurried forward. Through the large window, she could see inside the ER, a surgeon, his hands stained with blood, had already covered a tall, burly, one-eyed black man on the operating table with a white sheet. Who else could it be but Nick Fury? Natasha sighed and spoke in a low voice. He was seriously injured. The bullet was a Soviet-made, trackless bullet with great penetrating power. Although he was immediately brought here for emergency treatment, he couldn't be saved. Captain America Rogers was here just now, watching him die. How could this be? Sky clenched her hands in disbelief. But the truth was clear. Nick Fury, director of SYNOPSIS, was dead. The leader who had led her to the path of a spy was dead. Lost in their grief, they hadn't noticed. Nian stared at the corpse wrapped in white sheeting on the ER operating table, a look of slight surprise. Nick Fury might have fooled Captain America, Black Widow, Agent Sky, everyone here and outside, but he couldn't fool Nian right now. With his perfect spider sense, Nian could detect the lingering life force in a person, even if their heart had stopped. And there was more. Guan Luo, who could sense a person's energy and spirit, had confirmed that Nick Fury was in a stable state of suspended animation. Good job, old man. Nian rubbed his chin. He had to admit. They were both faking death, but the other person was so convincing that even he wanted to exclaim, professional. But thinking that he would give him some pocket money later, Nian remained calm and kept it a secret. That 30 million was well spent. Captain's already gone after the mastermind behind Fury's murder. What about you? Natasha asked, pulling Sky in a deep voice. I can do the same. But I have to finish the task at hand first, Sky said, turning back. You'll have no problem completing your mission. Natasha watched the boy's back as he left the corridor. Hesitantly, she warned, be careful. Don't get too curious about him. Don't get too close to him. What do you mean? He's dangerous. Sky stared at Natasha, puzzled. Anyway, just listen to me. Otherwise, you'll probably regret it later, Natasha said. Sky, like her, was a high-ranking agent. In terms of strength, thanks to his inhuman ability of shockwaves, his overall combat power was undoubtedly superior to hers. But in certain areas, his experience was like a blank slate compared to hers. And that boy, without a doubt, he was a natural-born, lacquered source of all evil. Once stained, it's impossible to wash it off. New York, outside on the street. What did the former teacher just say to you? Nian asked curiously. Nothing, Sky shook her head. She looked at the boy and asked, I just found out now that Natasha investigated you. Nian smiled and said, yes. A month ago, she was my new instructor and spent half a day teaching in my class. Nick Fury told me about her secret agent identity a few days ago. Nian. Sky stared at him closely, her beautiful eyes revealing a look of wariness or fear that she couldn't resist asking, who are you? Nian didn't answer directly, but shrugged. I am who you think I am. He looked ahead at the bustling neon-lit streets and whispered, Sky, are you still on this mission? Of course. Sky turned sideways, following his gaze in the same direction, and said firmly, I will protect you until I get you to SHIELD headquarters. Then, everything would be over. Perhaps, Sky thought, we would never meet again. Chapter 199, One Night in New York, Who Uses Who? Late at night, in a bachelor apartment in New York City, Sky returned with Nian, a kitten in her arms, and closed the door, immediately shutting out all outside sound and light. Only a sliver of light seeped in from the crack below. Why don't you turn on the light? Nian glanced into the pitch-black room and blinked, the kitten's pupils like two blazing blue flames. Turning on the light will make it easy for anyone outside to see you. If there's a sniper in the building across the street, you're doomed, Sky replied, his tone slightly cold. Nian glanced toward the windowsill. Sure enough, the windows were also closed, with dark curtains drawn, letting in only a faint glimmer of light. Nian was speechless for a moment. He wanted to say, I'm not afraid of snipers. But, seeing Nian expertly change into his slippers in the dark and enter the room with the lightness of a ghost, it was clear Sky was accustomed to this. Years of living in darkness and solitude seemed quite fitting for an agent. Nian also searched the shoe cabinet, only to find it empty. I live alone at home, and we rarely have guests, so I only have one pair of slippers. Sky, carrying a pile of blankets, returned to the living room from her room and said quickly, "You can come in with your own shoes. That way, we can escape in an emergency. You'll sleep in my room tonight, and I'll sleep on the sofa outside and keep watch. Tomorrow morning, we'll go to SHIELD headquarters." Okay, Nian agreed without hesitation. He had to say that. Although she seemed cold, she actually gave him a sense of security, and there was plenty of warmth inside. A cold and beautiful female agent? A warm and caring older sister. After showering, Nian changed into the outfit Sky had prepared, jeans and a white t-shirt for both men and women. They fit surprisingly well. Leaving the bathroom, Nian glanced at the living room sofa. Sky, covered under the blankets, seemed to be asleep, not moving. "Good night, Sky," Nian muttered softly, walked into the room, and closed the door behind him. Everything suddenly fell silent. 10 seconds of silence fell in the dark living room. Sky suddenly threw back the covers and slowly exhaled, as if she had been holding it. She covered her burning cheeks with her palms, then quickly gathered up the clothes hidden nearby and tiptoed into the dark bathroom. Horizontal ellipsis. Inside, the lights were also off, with only the light from outside reflected in the window. Nian sat cross-legged on the light pink bed and waved to the small orange cat beside him. The cat immediately understood and leaped forward, landing lightly on his crossed legs. Meow. The cat rolled its eyes anthropomorphically and meowed a few times at Nian. Nian seemed to understand what the cat meant and said helplessly, "I did pretend to be unconscious earlier, but it wasn't what you think. Open your mouth. I need a sample." He reached into the cat's slightly open mouth and felt around. Nian quickly produced a touchscreen smartphone. "Good thing I have a spare." Nian muttered to himself, watching the lit screen of his phone. A stream of data codes flashed across it like a dazzling stream of light. Sky's personal photo also appeared on it. "Keep keeping an eye out for me. And tomorrow, I'm relying on you," Nian muttered softly, as if speaking to the phone in his hand. The light on the phone screen flickered as if in response. He put the phone down. Nian closed his eyes, his mind flashing back to the events of the day. Finally, he suddenly opened his eyes and raised a finger forward. His finger pointed into the dark void. Buzz, a faint, yet unignorable, wave emanated from the air before him, like invisible ripples. But before it left the bed, it mysteriously subsided. "I see." Nian's eyes were thoughtful. So, this was the side effect of the other party's ability. The next morning, a high-riding black car sped through New York City streets, entering a modern bridge leading to an island within the city. The closer they got, the fewer ordinary residents and vehicles they could see. It felt like they had arrived at a restricted area, with mysterious figures in black occasionally whispering nearby. From the passenger seat, a young man stared out the window at the vast, ocean-like azure lake beneath the bridge. At the other end of the bridge, where the car was about to reach, the outline of an island, dotted with unusual skyscrapers and large factories, loomed. Guan Luo's clones had already explored the route. Therefore, Nian knew their destination, SHIELD headquarters, was approaching. "I still have time to turn around now," said a woman in the driver's seat, dressed in a tight, black leather agent uniform, with a sexy, dark blonde hair draped over her shoulders and a subtle, dark red lipstick, indifferently. "Why turn around?" Nian asked innocently. "I don't know if you're clear on this or not." Sky took a deep breath, staring solemnly ahead. Nick Fury, formerly the most prestigious director of SHIELD, is dead. Died in the city during the day. The mysterious force that attacked him also knew the route of Nick Fury's private car, and that when Nick Fury was in dire straits, he would seek help from Captain America. Everything was carefully planned. Moreover, to have such a high level of intelligence on Nick Fury, and to be able to quickly organize such a large-scale attack in the city. Sky paused at this point. "Are you suspecting this was done by one of our own?" Nian asked bluntly. "Except for SHIELD, I can't think of any other organization that has such means, although it's just a guess." Sky gripped the steering wheel tightly with both hands and looked straight ahead. "Anyway. Now, SHIELD headquarters may be hiding huge dangers and secrets. Not to mention you, once I go in, I may not be able to get out. If you want to turn around. Now, there's still time." Before Sky could finish her words, Nian interrupted her and asked, if it weren't for this mission, would you want to go into the headquarters? Sky was silent for 2 seconds, and then said softly, after all, SHIELD is the place where I was trained. I don't believe it would be so corrupt or dark, so I have to go in and confirm it myself. With your mission, I also have a legitimate reason to enter the headquarters and explore. Then continue your pickup mission. Nian's harmless face revealed an indifferent look, and he looked a bit bookish and weak while holding the kitten. I'm using you. Sky gripped the steering wheel tighter, not daring to look the boy in the eye. Please. The trip hasn't even started yet, so why should I go home midway? Nian smiled faintly and reached out to smooth the little orange cat's fur. Exploiting? Who isn't? Chapter 200 Captain America and Nian in the elevator. Island in the city, SHIELD headquarters, main building. Stop. The young man entered the main entrance when he was stopped by 4 male agents guarding the gate. It's me, Shock. The woman in the black uniform behind him immediately stepped forward, gesturing with her agent ID, and said coldly, I've been assigned by Nick Fury to take him on a tour of SHIELD headquarters. Nick Fury? The 4 male agents exchanged glances, still holding out their hands to stop the young man. Sky sneered, stepped forward, and stood beside Nian. What? Nick Fury was indeed attacked and killed by a mysterious force yesterday, but this was an order he issued while serving as director of SHIELD. Are you thinking of disobeying the director's orders in less than a day? How could it be? We're still in shock about the attack on the director. The leading agent chuckled and waved his hand. The other 3 immediately stepped aside, allowing Nian and Sky to enter the main entrance. After the access control, there's SHIELD's extremely strict security check. Any living creature or object will be detected by the scanner. Nian had previously had Conluos around SHIELD headquarters, but they couldn't get past this barrier. Even a tiny, transparent, split jellyfish clinging to an agent would likely be detected by the high-precision scanners. No kittens, pets, or cell phones allowed in, the security officer bluntly told Nian. Nian held the little orange cat and pulled his phone out of his pocket. Then, Sky spoke up, he should have temporary access granted by the director. Even so, as an outside visitor. The security officer glanced at the computer screen and suddenly exclaimed, huh? Looking at Nian in surprise, he blurted out, the director actually granted such high-level temporary access. I've never seen anyone like that since Captain America. You can bring your pets and cell phones in, please. The security officer quickly corrected himself. Watching Nian and the others successfully pass through the access control and security check and enter the building. SHIELD headquarters restricted area. The lead agent who had previously blocked Nian's entry dialed a channel and reported in a low voice into his wireless headset, Nick Fury gave a boy around 16 extremely high temporary clearance yesterday and had Shock pick him up. Now the 2 have successfully entered SHIELD headquarters. Meanwhile, several hundred meters up, on the top floor of the SHIELD headquarters building, 1 floor above the director's office, sat a middle-aged man in a suit and tie, his blonde hair neatly combed, on a leather sofa next to the large floor-to-ceiling windows. I understand. After listening to the agent's report, the middle-aged man narrowed his eyes dangerously and said casually, Nick Fury is dead. It doesn't matter who that boy is. What matters is Shockwave. She's one of Nick Fury's confidants, and her abilities are quite formidable. She might have returned to headquarters to investigate. We'll assemble a special forces team later and keep them inside. The access control agent said, capture or kill? If we capture Shockwave, the target will be Shockwave, which will be extremely difficult. Just kill him. The middle-aged man said it calmly, his legs crossed in a haughty and cold manner, as if he were sitting high above the clouds, not even blinking. With 1 sentence, it seemed as if he had pronounced the fate of Shockwave and the boy. Nian successfully entered SHIELD headquarters. At first glance, the large main hall seemed a little deserted, mostly filled with agents rushing back and forth. This is the largest Secret Service base in the world, bar none. It's filled with the cream of the crop. The entire building is built to national defense standards, housing Secret Service soldiers, intelligence officers, medical personnel, and more. Over 10,000 people work simultaneously, capable of detecting anomalies around the globe. Sky, acting as a tour guide, followed Nian and whispered the explanation. Nian glanced at her curiously. Sky, why are you still following me? Didn't you complete your transportation mission? I picked you up and then took you home. Sky said sternly, my mission isn't over until I get you home. How could that be? Nian suspected Sky was playing dirty, but he had no proof. You're not trying to get rid of me, are you? Sky stared at him intently, asking, where are you going to visit SYNOPSIS? Sky began to sense that the young man held many mysteries and secrets. For example, she had checked Nian's person yesterday and was absolutely certain he didn't have a cell phone, yet today he had one. Since you want to follow, then act as your guide. Nian smiled mysteriously, then asked, where can I get some coffee here? Sky? Nian and Sky entered the elevator and pressed the button for the 3rd floor. Just as the elevator was about to close, a snap. A hand suddenly reached in from the outside, barely blocking the gap between the elevator doors. Sky tensed suddenly, and he and Nian looked up. Then, the two people in the elevator, along with a man who had blocked the doors and entered from the outside, were stunned. Nian. The tall young man who entered exclaimed in surprise. Mr. Rogers, long time no see, Nian greeted politely, showing due respect to the elderly. Yes, the young man who had blocked the elevator and entered, dressed in a tight blue uniform, his iconic pentagram-shaped round shield slung across his back, wasn't he the hunk-of-butt? Captain America? Yes, long time no see. I didn't expect to see you here again, Steve Rogers sighed, his eyes tinged with surprise. He was truly astonished by the young man. Wait? Sky looked from Nian to Captain America, startled. How did you two meet? Nian smiled. I was visiting New York the other day, and Mr. Rogers and I ran into each other at the memorial, sort of by chance. Indeed, we hit it off pretty well, Rogers agreed. The two exchanged pleasantries, and between men, everything was unspoken. Sky eyed them suspiciously. Although they all had many questions, it was clear to all three that this was not the time for conversation. Which floor are you going to, Captain? I'll press the button for you, Sky asked. Thank you. Press the top floor for me, Rogers replied naturally. I'm going to talk to the SHIELD director. What about you guys? He asked casually, raising an eyebrow. Let's go to the 3rd floor for coffee. Nian smiled brightly. One came to chat, the other to have coffee. Looking at the relaxed and confident young man and the boy, Sky suddenly had a feeling that something serious was about to happen at SHIELD headquarters. And separated from Captain America in the elevator, Nian actually made it to the common room of the SHIELD headquarters building and asked Sky, the female agent next to him, to make him a cup of coffee with milk. Sky, unsure of what to say, ultimately ran to the lobby to make some coffee. He sat down in a chair by the floor-to-ceiling window. Nian placed Xiao Wang on a nearby chair and, calmly and casually, pulled his phone from his pocket. Let me see what secrets SHIELD headquarters hides. Nian's eyes reflected the light of his phone screen. Actually, Sky probably couldn't have imagined at the moment Nian successfully entered SHIELD headquarters with his phone, his purpose for this trip had essentially been achieved. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.